first, let's invest in our economies in the developing world so we can do these jobs ourselves. We cannot 80 years still be saying we've got another 80 years before we develop to a place where we can, you know, meet the aspirations of our people. So let's say this is a partnership. And let's hope that what they see is that they're investing in development, and investing in development is a more peaceful world, it's more fair, it's more inclusive. Put the checks and balances in to hold people to account, leaders from wherever, and see how we move forward.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with Brazilian President Lula da Silva, Nobel Peace Prize winner Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and international music legend Stevie Wonder. Until the next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was the interview. I'm Saroja.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. You are listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM in Winnipeg, everywhere on the CBC Listen app, and streaming on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Right now in Winnipeg, it's mainly clear right now. No sunshine yet. We're on our way to a high of 21 under a mainly sunny sky. We're going to get more on your forecast coming up. But first, let's see what's making news today. Here is Heather Wells joining us from the CBC News Centre with your headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, Canada Post workers say they have been steamrolled by the federal government, and that's why they went on strike. Yesterday, as we've been telling you, Ottawa said Canada Post is free to end home delivery and close some rural post offices. Hours later, picket lines went up in Winnipeg and right across the country. Sean Tugby at the local Cup W says the review of post office operations is supposed to last until next March. So we'll hear more from the union. We're also going to hear from seniors and from people in remote communities. As well, the makers of a new documentary say more needs to be done to help Manitoba students who have given up on school. It's a documentary called Absent, and it says a lack of effective provincial action has failed thousands of children. Those stories and more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells there with your morning headlines from the CBC Manitoba YouTube Centre. Joining me on the show today, let's say a very warm good morning to Abby Adiyemi, who's our show director. Abby will also be along shortly with some weather and some traffic. Marshall Hodgins is behind the controls in our control room there, and you know Brad Lillies. He is pushing the buttons there for our YouTube stream. Good morning to all of you. So today here in Winnipeg, as I mentioned, we're looking at another pleasant day. Temperatures remaining above seasonal for the weekend. 21 degrees today, the expected high here in Winnipeg under a mainly sunny sky. Dropping down to 8 degrees this evening. Slight chance of a shower tomorrow, sunshine, and a high of 22. Coming up in the first hour of the show here, we're going to hear more about Canada Post and what that means for the future of customers and also for the Crown Corporation. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. Stay with us. World Report is coming up next.
On cue, Scarlett Johansson is a true movie star. She is the highest grossing actor in the world, and she's just directed her first feature film. She'll be here to talk about that, about working with the late Robert Redford, and why she has never had any social media.
I don't know anybody that's on social media that's like, it seems to fulfill.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Postal workers are once again on picket lines this morning. Their union reacting swiftly yesterday to the government's proposed cost-cutting measures, which included ending home delivery. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau with more. Janice, the union and Canada Post have been far apart for months. Where do we go from here?
John, these two sides are so far apart, it's not clear they can even see each other. And that doesn't bode well for bargaining and the good faith consideration of new offers, a process that before workers walked out last night had been set to resume today. Negotiator Jim Gallant said yesterday the union feels the inquiry that led to these changes was fixed in favor of what Canada Post's management wants. And that, yes, there have been a few bad years, but there is money to be made without cutting services and delivery standards. So now he's negotiating in public to rally opinion around their side.
We expect Canadians will get behind us. When we've been out on our picket lines, people are saying that we're getting the bad end of the stick and that the government and Canada Post should do something.
But Canada Post has been clear that what the union's saying is gaslighting. There is no return to sound finances, maybe no future period for the Postal Service without a new approach that matches how Canadians actually use postal services in 2025. Minister Joel Lightbound made it clear yesterday that the federal treasury cannot afford billion-dollar bailouts to cover the Crown Corporation's losses anymore, as Canada moves into a period of fiscal austerity with serious economic threats ahead.
And I think that's what Canadians expect, that we show political courage.
In the midst of campaigning for re-election in Newfoundland and Labrador, provincial Liberal leader John Hogan was quick yesterday to put out a statement saying provinces and communities must be consulted before any changes proceed, particularly in rural Canada. That's a sign of how politically potent postal cuts can be.
You mentioned politically, Janice, this creates a difficult situation for both the government and the opposition. What do they have to balance in a minority parliament?
Neither the Bloc nor the NDP are going to support legislating an end to a strike. So the opposition Conservatives are taking time. They said they needed to digest the changes before responding. Conservatives agree on the need for government austerity. The business community, particularly small and independent businesses, want this kind of change. But the opposition's on a possible collision course here with its recent strategy of reaching out to add unionized workers to its ranks. There may be a temptation for Conservatives to take a populist stance on the side of ordinary Canadians who are losing their service. This is going to be a political dilemma to watch.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address the United Nations General Assembly this morning. It comes as Israel faces growing international isolation over its war in Gaza. Observers predict that Netanyahu will use the speech to push back on his critics, especially those nations that have recognized a Palestinian state. Sep.26 has more from Jerusalem.
Dueling demonstrations outside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Manhattan hotel. Accusations of genocide in Gaza up against supporters of Israel. The mood will be similar and just as tense inside the UN General Assembly when Netanyahu takes the podium. Virtually every leader speaking so far has condemned Israel's assault on Gaza. Some may well walk out in protest. On his way to New York, Netanyahu said he plans to respond defiantly to calls for a Palestinian state. I will speak the truth, he said, the truth of IDF soldiers of our country. The only major leader to take Israel's side has been U.S. President Donald Trump, but even he isn't backing Netanyahu unconditionally as he tries to forge a deal to end the Gaza war with his own 21-point peace plan.
We spoke with Bibi Netanyahu today, and we spoke to all the leaders in the Middle East, who are great people, and we're getting pretty close to having a deal on Gaza, and maybe even peace.
The Trump plan calls for Hamas to leave Gaza, but Israel's army too, which Netanyahu has so far refused. Netanyahu's own speech today, while likely fiery, walks a fine line between pleasing his political base at home and his most important sponsor in the White House. Sep.26, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A British court is throwing out a terror-related charge against the frontman for the Irish group Kneecap. Rapper Mo Chara had been charged for waving a Hezbollah flag during a London concert last year. The charges were thrown out on a technicality. The chief magistrate said the legal proceedings against Chara were instituted unlawfully. Kneecap recently cancelled its Canadian tour after a Liberal MP claimed on social media that Canada would not allow them into the country. The group says it received no official word from the government about the ban.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump.
That's part of a video by former FBI Director James Comey. It was posted to social media after he was indicted on 2 federal charges late yesterday, both connected to a Bureau investigation into U.S. President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign and possible ties to Russia. Trump has been putting pressure on the Justice Department to indict Comey. On social media, Trump posted that he is welcoming this development, and Comey says he's ready for a fight.
My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
Comey is expected to make his first appearance in court on October 9th. We're waiting for some key data today that will show the health of the Canadian economy. It's not been in great shape recently. Unemployment is climbing and confidence has been plummeting. But is the the economy slipping into an actual recession? We'll get a better sense when GDP numbers are released next hour. In the meantime, Peter Armstrong has more.
Just about everywhere you go, you can see the impact of the U.S. trade war. Jobs have been lost, economic activity has slowed, people in almost every region of the country are feeling it. The economy shrank in the quarter running from April to June. Just this week, Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem offered this succinct description in a speech in Saskatoon.
Tariffs have weakened our exports and GDP growth. They've slowed the job market and they've added costs.
But there are some glimmers of hope emerging. Since June, economic activity has started to show some signs of life. Manufacturing sales, wholesale trade, car and truck production were all up over the summer. Even Canada's housing market is seeing sales pick up again.
You could say that we've dodged a recession so far.
That's CIBC Chief Economist Avery Schenfeld. He says July and August probably saw some gains, which would make it unlikely that the economy sees 2 back-to-back quarters of negative growth, the technical definition of a recession. He says there are plenty of risks ahead, though, and either way, even if this isn't a technical recession, it sure feels like one for many Canadian workers. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, a growing number of products labeled as compostable popping up on store shelves. Consumers may think that they're an environmentally friendly alternative to single-use plastics, but as the latest marketplace investigation shows, many of them may not live up to their claims. Charles Agro has more.
Wow, it looks brand new. Brown and a little bit stinky. But even after 14 weeks submerged in a lake, a spoon labeled compostable did not break down at all. I mean, you could eat your soup with that right now. No problem. A total of 30 compostable items placed in 3 different environments, buried in the dirt, a backyard composter, and submerged in Lake Ontario. The only products that fully broke down in Marketplace's test, a paper straw and 2 paper plates.
It's single-use garbage.
Environmental Defense's Karen Wursig wasn't surprised by the lack of breakdown in the so-called compostable products.
The stuff that looks and feels and is marketed closer to plastic is effectively plastic, and it's doing the same kind of damage in the environment as conventional plastic.
Many compostable products on the market are labeled and suitable for industrial compost facilities only, facilities that simply don't exist in many Canadian cities. York University waste researcher Cal Lacken believes better labeling could clear things up for consumers and the planet.
They do need to know, A, will this break down? B, can I put it in my green bin? Or C, can I put it in my backyard? And that's all they really need to know, and I think whatever operational definition we have should communicate that very clearly to consumers.
Both Lacken and Wursig agree the best alternative to single-use plastic, something that is reusable. Charles Agro, CBC News, Toronto.
And you can find out more about so-called compostable plastics on the season premiere of Marketplace tonight. That's on CBC Television and CBC Gem at 8 o'clock, 8:30 in Newfoundland. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. You are listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 189.3 FM, 990 AM in Winnipeg. Everywhere on the CBC Listen app and streaming on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, coming up this hour on the show, lots of talk here about the developments around Canada Post. The federal government says Canada Post could end home delivery for millions of addresses. We'll hear more about what that might mean for the way Canadians get their mail. And we're also going to hear from some of you. What do you think of the changes coming to Canada Post? But first up here on the show, former Winnipegger and host of CBC Music's After Dark, Odario Williams, will join us to talk about celebrating 8 years of the moody and groovy late night music program. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM in Winnipeg, everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. At 6:11, let's check in now with Heather Wells at the CBC Manitoba News Centre with a look at your headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, thousands of postal workers are off the job this morning, including here in Winnipeg. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers called their strike late yesterday afternoon after the federal government announced changes to Canada Post. Sean Tugby, president of the local Cup W in Winnipeg, says no one saw this coming. Meanwhile, leaders of remote communities and First Nations are concerned about these changes. Cheryl Matheson, the deputy mayor of Sheridan in northern Manitoba, says people in remote areas and First Nations rely heavily on Canada Post for deliveries, including prescription medication. And a rural Manitoba senior says respiratory issues prevented her from giving a breath sample when she was pulled over for speeding last November. But MPI has upheld her license suspension. We're going to hear more of this story in our next local news at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells there with your morning headlines from the CBC Manitoba News Centre. It is 6:12. Well, let's see what's happening in the forecast and also what's happening on traffic. Abby Adeyemi keeping an eye on both those things on this Friday morning. Hi, Abby.
Just setting the mood this morning. This is what it's going to look like today. Sunny,
I love it.
Across board.
Sunny, and I see the Tasmanian devil, so a little bit maybe chaotic at times.
Yeah, we're going to see some rain in the northern parts of the province into the weekend. But overall, sunshine will definitely touch most parts of the province this morning. A few showers in the northern region. Winnipeg right now, we're hovering 6 and 9 degrees, depending on where you are in the city. It is clear outside. I spotted some foggy conditions on my way in, but that should lift as you get into the morning. You might notice that's in low-lying areas outside the city. We should see sunshine and then some clouds will drift in the afternoon. Malbury is coming from the south, and it's just going to keep things comfortable and more like setting the pace for the weekend as we get into the weekend. And that's what we're looking at across the southern regions. We're seeing a clear morning and lots of sunshine in the forecast. Highs will be near 20 for today for most of the regions.
Ooh. Warm.
Yeah, warm, but it's going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And then for traffic, regular 6 a.m. traffic, nothing to report yet. Just give yourself extra time. Remember those spots in the city that we have construction, Provencher, Archibald, and even around the Princess area. We should be seeing traffic in that area as rush hour traffic builds. But if you see anything, you can give us a call, 788-3093.
Coming up to 6:14 now. Well, if you tune into CBC Music at 8 p.m., you'll recognize this sound.
As the light fades, Odario Williams chases the sunset with your evening soundtrack. After Dark on CBC Music.
Microphone check. 1, 2. Hey, it's Odario Williams, transmitting to you direct from downtown Toronto on this Wednesday night. You're listening to CBC Music. This is
We'll replace downtown Toronto with downtown Winnipeg and Wednesday night with Saturday night. And you've got the recipe for an exciting recording of After Dark with Odario Williams at Nuit Blanche. The party kicks off 7 p.m. on Saturday outside of Art Space with Odario spinning tunes well into the night. Odario Williams, former Winnipegger, by the way, spoke with Up to Speed's Faith Fundal yesterday.
How do you feel being back home?
I feel great being back home, especially here in this studio looking out the window. And, well, Elam Chapel across the street. My aunt goes there, so
Yeah.
yeah. I've got all types of feels going on right now.
Brings back lots of memories. Are there go-to stops in Winnipeg that you like to? One of those like if I don't go there, I'm going to be in trouble kind of thing.
Well, not so much trouble, but I do love the folks at Fools and Horses. I believe that's what the coffee joint's called.
Yep.
Yeah, inside the Forks Market. I always make a stop there, and then I choose one of the places to eat while I have that coffee. I'm a big coffee guy, so.
Are you a morning coffee or all-day coffee kind of person?
I stop at 2.
That's smart.
Yeah, or else I turn into a different human. You don't want to know that guy. No, you don't want to know him.
No.
No.
What we do want to know is, I imagine your upbringing here had an impact in your music taste, in who you are now and what you like to listen to. How would you characterize how that impacted you?
That is a great question, because I tell people wherever I travel to, especially when I'm performing, that Winnipeg really shaped me. And part of it was the DIY spirit that we had 20 years ago when I was coming up in, the underground scene. I learned from a lot of the bands around me, package your own material. I remember hanging out with punk band Propaganda one day. They allowed me to come up on top of the Mondragon. They had an office there. And I'm like, what you guys doing? And like, oh, we're just packaging up our vinyl and sending them out. Like, oh, you don't have anyone to do that for you? No, we do it all ourselves, bro.
Were you surprised?
I wasn't necessarily surprised. It was just really cool to see it firsthand. And I looked at all the addresses on these packages, and I was going out to Japan and Australia and Germany, and I was so inspired. And I thought, I want to do this, and I want to do it on my own as well.
The Nuit Blanche event marks 8 years of After Dark.
Yeah.
Does it feel that long?
It does not feel that long. A friend of mine called me up and he said, what are you at now, 4, 5? Like, no. It's been 8 years of After Dark. It still feels like a new show. Still feels fresh, which is cool. And we play a lot of artists from across the country. A lot of Manitoba artists, actually.
Yeah.
And they keep the show fresh,
What when you think back, because it doesn't feel that long, and yet 8 years is not a short time, right?
Yeah,
right. Are there things that stand out for you? Any moments that stand out?
Well, I would say the emails, the letters. I call them letters, even though they're emails.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I'll say, write me a letter and deliver that letter to this email.
It's a letter. It's a letter.
Yeah, and I get some great letters, man, from all over the place, around the world. A lot of expats, a lot of people that get jobs elsewhere and just want a piece of home, so they listen to the show.
Do they ever ask you for things, or ask you a question, or is it more, hey, here's my thought, thanks?
I get all types of random questions. Once I had someone send me a message and say, hey, can you call me? I've got some things that I need to ask you. I was so close to it. I almost called.
Did you? You didn't call?
No, I didn't do it. No, I didn't want to open up those can of worms, man. No way. But I was so close. Yeah, she's like, could you give me a call? I've got some questions I need to ask you about life. I think she needed some advice, that person. And
I mean, it sounds like, and not surprising, you have this relationship with folks, albeit parasocial, but there is this relationship that you have with folks. So if I were to go to a fan, whether new or long time, and I asked them, tell me about Odario, what do you hope they would say?
I don't know. I don't even know what I would say, man. He changes all the time. It depends how many coffees that day he had.
And what time. Along with hosting After Dark, you're a DJ, of course, in the true sense of the title.
Yeah.
What goes into a good DJ set? And this is a very loaded question, I know.
Yes, it is. But, people need to know Not everyone can just be a DJ because you like music or want to just play music. You've got to look up. You have to look up. If the direction you're going is affecting the people in front of you in a good way, then you know you're in the right direction. But you also have to know that if it's not working, you need to change directions. A lot of people, when they're DJing, they just want to play their favorite songs for everybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't connect. You have to look up, and if it's connecting, then you know you're on the right path. And if it's not connecting, you've got to come up with a plan B quickly.
Have you been there?
Oh,
Where you're
yeah.
You're like, yeah, this is awesome. And then you look up and no one's dancing.
Yeah, sometimes you think, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this song right now, and everyone's going to go crazy. And I play the song, and you just see people in the crowd go, want to get a drink? Want to... Or you know what?
Not what you were hoping for.
Yeah, want to go to the bar, or I'm going to go to the washroom right now. And I'm like, no, I thought they were going to love this song. So you just have to be prepared. You just have to be prepared.
What are you most looking forward to for Saturday's event?
I am looking forward to seeing some friends I haven't seen in a long time. It's going to be a 4-hour set, by the way. So for me, that's easy. A lot of people, a couple hours is enough, but I'll be playing the entire 4 hours, and that show will be rebroadcasted when I'm doing. I'm recording an episode of After Dark, and then it will be rebroadcasted a couple times before the end of the year. And I'm just looking forward to, looking out, seeing some familiar faces, hopefully, Faith, connecting with them.
Maybe that person who asked you to call them.
Maybe.
But maybe don't say it because
maybe
that might sound weird.
Hey, you haven't called me yet. Oh, no.
That is Odario Williams, the host of CBC Music's After Dark and a former Winnipegger. You can witness a special live edition of the show at Nuit Blanche tomorrow. For all the details, visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's a day of hope, awareness, and reflection. A day that will show Canadians the path forward. Join CBC as we explore the rich and diverse cultures, voices, experiences, and histories of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people with a full day of programming, concerts, documentaries, and special events right across the country. September 30th on radio, TV, online, and on demand on CBC Listen and CBC Gem.
Coming up to 6:23, you're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa. We've cooled off just a degree since the last hour, currently 7 degrees and clear in Winnipeg. Canada Post is in turmoil. Yesterday, the federal government announced major changes for the Crown Corporation. Millions of Canadians could see their mail go to community boxes instead of their front doors. The cost-cutting measure, one of several, drew quick response from the union representing Canada Post workers. CUPW says all its members are now on a nationwide strike over what it calls, quote, the government's attack on postal workers, unquote. For a closer look at this story, we've reached Stephen Tufts. He's an associate professor of geography at York University in Toronto. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me today, Stephen.
Good morning.
Let's start with what triggered this action here by the union. Can you break down what these new measures actually mean for Canada Post?
Well, I think we have to understand that the government was really aggressive and sort of implemented a number of changes that's going to allow Canada Post to undertake and begin significant restructuring. And you've mentioned, of course, the end of door delivery, the expansion of community mailboxes. Canada Post will be able to increase rates more efficiently and more quickly. They could perhaps go to 3 days per week mail delivery. And, of course, there's going to be potentially more closures of rural post offices because the moratorium has been ended.
Go ahead, Stephen.
And then all of these changes, of course, to get to the cost savings that Canada Post thinks it requires, inevitably is going to mean less work. And less work means layoffs. And that's just something that triggered the the walkout yesterday, because now the Cup W is really in an existential strike for the future of the post office and its workforce.
As we know, Stephen, there was no. I mean, Canada Post has been negotiating here with the union, the employees, over a contract and everything. And now that the union has launched this nationwide strike, I mean, how does their action change the situation?
Well, I think there's a couple things going on here. One is that when workers think they have nothing to lose, and many of the workers, current members of Cup W, probably do think that their jobs are in jeopardy, the strategy is at least to go out and withdraw the labor service and then demonstrate to Canada Post, because they are still delivering billions of pieces of mail each year. It's just a decline from previous years. And to Canadians as well, that the Postal Service is still necessary. And of course, there are lots of small businesses and rural communities that depend on postal services maybe more than somebody living in a big city, for example. So I think that's where the strategy is. And we'll see over the next week or so how long the strike lasts, and as well as Prime Minister Carney tries to enact back-to-work orders or back-to-work legislation.
Stephen, do you think that these changes will spark criticism from opposition parties?
Yeah, I think there's going to be criticisms from different directions. The first criticism will be from the NDP, who's very much more supportive of labor on the way that the government has intervened and really altered the bargaining process and put the thumb on the scale for Canada Post and given it an advantage here. And I think the Conservatives will also be critical, maybe not for the same reasons, but if there are going to be rural post office closures, some of those may be in Conservative ridings, and that's something that'll be mentioned. And not to mention that Conservatives will also criticize the manner in which the government has handled the situation and put us into this turmoil and this chaotic situation where you have a strike ongoing.
How much responsibility do you think that the federal government has here for the financial challenges that Canada Post is facing? I mean, people will recall that the Liberals canceled the previous Conservative government's move here to those community mailboxes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's because the community mailboxes, their implementation is a little bit more tricky than people imagine. There's questions of accessibility, cost, they have to be built. It's not as straightforward as people may think. But yes, and there is a cost to running a post office, and it is a public service, and it's clear that the government has no intention of fully subsidizing Canada Post. But the government also has a responsibility to maintain a national institution and postal services. And there was supposed to be a mandate review carried out that's been delayed, and it was announced it was going to be carried out over the next few months, which would maybe, change the charter that, gives Canada Post some guidelines it has to adhere to. But the government just went ahead and made those changes without that review. And in some cases, you could argue the changes announced yesterday directly contradict the current charter that really says Canada Post has to be universal. It has to have affordable rates. It has to be reliable. It has to be secure. And I think that's what is a concern to Canadians as well, is that we need a broad discussion of what the postal services will look like and to be fair to workers at the same time.
Stephen, what do these changes say about Ottawa's approach to public services, more broadly?
Well, I think this is what other unions in federally regulated sectors and in the federal public service are looking at right now. Is the Canada Post example sort of a preview of the cuts that Carney has said he might want to make to the federal public service? And how hard is he going to play with unions as he does that restructuring? And I think that's something that we'll be looking at over the next few months, because he is a different prime minister than Prime Minister Trudeau.
Stephen, we have about 20 seconds left here, but I want to ask you, looking ahead here, what could these measures mean for the future delivery of mail here in Canada?
Well, I think that there's going to be a lot of changes, and I think Canada Post has not been as innovative as it could have been in dealing with these changes over the past decades. There's different services that Canada Post could have introduced to increase revenue streams. And also, it could have maybe lobbied the government to give it a piece of the parcel delivery service that right now is being delivered by a range of companies. And I think that's something that wasn't necessarily pursued as well. So now we're in this mess where Canada Post has to compete for parcel delivery and faces the declining volumes of mail.
Stephen, we're going to have to leave it there. I really do appreciate you joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. Stephen Tufts is an associate professor of geography at York University. It is time now for your CBC Local News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 7 degrees. It feels cool, but boy, are we going to warm up. Windy today, mix of sun and clouds, a high of 21. And we're going to see that wind right throughout southern Manitoba and warm temperatures through the weekend and beyond. A rural Manitoba senior says she has been robbed of her ability and of her mobility because of lung disease, preventing her from taking a breathalyzer. Sharon Hosko was pulled over for speeding on Highway 44 last November. When the RCMP officer demanded a breath sample, she says her diagnosed pulmonary issues wouldn't let her hold her breath long enough to do it. So her license was suspended. An MPI told her she can't get it back until the 77-year-old installs an ignition interlock device on her car. Hosko says she tried 6 times to breathe into that device and couldn't make it work either.
It's taken away because I can't breathe into it, and I can't get my license back because I can't breathe into that. So it just doesn't seem fair to me.
Hosko insists she was not impaired and hadn't been drinking when she was pulled over. She has applied for a judicial review of MPI's decision, hoping to get her license back. Well, as we've been telling you this morning, Canada Post is on strike. Workers say they have been steamrolled by the federal government. Yesterday, Ottawa said Canada Post is free to end home delivery and close some rural post offices. Hours later, picket lines went up in Winnipeg and right across the country. Sean Tugby is the local president of Cup W. He says there's supposed to be a review of post office operations until next March, and he is shocked by the government's decision.
The government's directly getting involved with bargaining for a government that said that they'd be supporting workers, Canadian jobs, Canadian economy, and unionized workers. They're doing against the opposite of all those things that they promised.
Tugby says the workers want to get back to the bargaining table. They've been without a contract for more than 600 days. Now, the federal government's call for service cuts at the post office is not sitting well with the leaders of remote communities. Ottawa is lifting that moratorium on closing rural post offices and allowing Canada Post to move non-urgent mail by ground instead of by air. Cheryl Matheson, Deputy Mayor of Sheridan in Northern Manitoba, is also the president of the Northern Association of Community Councils. It represents the province's 48 Northern Affairs communities.
Our communities 100% rely on Canada Post right now for, mail to medication to Amazon packages, and it would hurt all of us not to have it.
Canada Post has 45 days to give the government a cost-saving plan. It is unclear exactly which rural locations could be affected. Prime Minister Mark Carney is meeting with several fellow world leaders in London, the Prime Minister attending the Global Progress Action. Carney's first meeting was with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to strike a defiant tone today in his address to the United Nations General Assembly. This as Israel faces growing international isolation. Former FBI Director James Comey is expected to turn himself in to authorities this morning. He was indicted on charges of making a false statement to Congress and obstructing justice. U.S. President Donald Trump has long been irritated over the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Trump is celebrating the indictment, calling it justice for America. Comey isn't cowed.
My heart is broken for the Department of Justice. But I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
A grand jury decided against a third charge. You can hear the latest on all these stories coming up on World Report at 7. A new documentary is shining a light on the number of Manitoba children who have simply given up on school. Produced by the Christian outreach organization Inner City Youth Alive, Absent makes the case Indigenous and inner-city kids are disproportionately affected by chronic absenteeism. It calls on the provincial government for immediate reforms. Inner City Youth Alive founder Kent Duick says the issue holds dire consequences for the future.
We're going to have to make peace with a world where kids are uneducated and then are going to lose opportunities at a beautiful life.
Winnipeg School Division Superintendent Matt Henderson says while the documentary claims absenteeism is 70% in one school, the actual rate of chronic absenteeism is closer, he says, to 6%. Absent premieres October 1st at Jubilee Place Concert Hall. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
That is Heather Wells with your CBC local news from the CBC Manitoba News Centre. It is 6:35. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa this morning here on Information Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. Abby Adiyemi has just popped into the studio. And Abby, keeping an eye on traffic, on weather, doing it in style, I must say.
Yeah, it's because of the sunshine we're expecting today. Lots of sunshine in the forecast for the regions today. A few clouds would be spotted here and there, but overall it's going to be a pleasant one across board, at least setting pace for that weekend feel. Winnipeg right now, still clear conditions between 6 and 9 degrees. That's what we're seeing. We'll see sunshine through the morning, warming up to about 21 today, and then some clouds will build later in the evening, and we may get a slim chance of showers. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region. We're seeing temperatures hover around 7-8 degrees, warming up to the 20s. Brandon all the way towards Nipawat. It's cool at this time. We're seeing 4-5 degrees in that region. Sunshine also on the way. You're warming up to 23. In the Parkland region, from Dauphin all the way down to Russell Roblin, surrounding communities, just 3 degrees right now. Clear conditions. The sunshine will be felt, and then it's going to give way by midday. Slight chance of showers in the afternoon, warming up to 23. Gimli, 2 degrees right now, warming up to 24. The power flame, we're looking at a cooler temperatures in that part of the province, but you should warm to about 16. Thompson is foggy at this time, 0. You should see some sunshine later, and then rain coming your way this afternoon. Temperatures will be around 16 degrees later in the day. Churchill, 5 degrees. Also, some rain on the way to you. That should start later in the evening, and you warm up to about 12 degrees today. So it's more like warm and pleasant, not that muggy one we've been getting like a few days back.
Yeah, no, it's and it's staying above seasonal, so it looks like a little bit of an extended
one.
Yeah, extended summer. What's traffic looking like out there?
Nothing yet. You see anything in traffic, give us a call, 788-3093.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adiyemi with a look at your weather forecast and traffic this morning here on Information Radio. Well, it is 6:37 now, and it is time to check in with Antonia Reid, who joins us with your business report. Good morning, Antonia.
Good morning.
Of course, the big story here in Canada, a lot of people talking about what's happening here with Canada Post and the Canada Post strike. How is this affecting businesses?
Yeah, so Canadian small businesses are already worried about the impact this is going to have. Of course, memories of last year's strike that happened over the holiday season are still fresh. CBC spoke to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, and President Dan Kelly says, he welcomes moves by the federal government to modernize Canada Post, but in the meantime, this is going to hurt because businesses use Canada Post to send money business to business and, of course, packages, especially in rural areas, ad mail, flyers, that's already been affected. And in the long run, he says it's going to drive business elsewhere. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
The impact is going to be huge on a lot of small firms. And every day before these reforms take place, more and more small businesses will look to private sector alternatives, likely never to return to Canada Post, making the job to get the corporation back on track even that much harder.
Yeah, and he's warning that these small firms could lose hundreds of millions of dollars, pointing out, of course, the holiday season is just around the corner.
Okay, Antonia, there is more turmoil on the tariff front here. What's the latest?
Yeah, so this came through on Truth Social yesterday evening. That's, of course, the U.S. president's social media site. An announcement from Donald Trump that he's putting import taxes of 100% on pharmaceutical drugs, 50% on kitchen cabinets and bathroom vanities, 30% on upholstered furniture, 25% on heavy trucks, all starting on October 1st. Now, with the pharmaceutical tariffs, he says these will not apply to companies that are building plants in the United States, but it's unclear how the tariffs will apply to companies that already have factories in the U.S. Now, to be clear, many of these tariffs will affect Americans. Pascal Chan with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce says they will feel it almost immediately through price hikes to medication, strained insurance systems, and risks of patients rationing or skipping medication. And the news is already having an impact on markets globally, with shares in Europe's biggest pharma companies falling in early trading and Asian markets also down.
Finally, Antonia, there might be an opportunity to own a bit of Canadian retail history. What can you tell us about the Bay?
Yeah, so an Ontario judge has approved the sale of more than 4,000 items from Hudson's Bay, 1,700 pieces of art, about 2,700 artifacts. A lawyer for the firm saying that the items are from Hudson's Bay's retail era rather than the fur trading days. Sources telling the Canadian press that the collection includes paintings, paper documents, and even a few collectible Barbie dolls. Financial advisors to the Bay saying that they've already seen interest from Indigenous groups and government institutions, museums, universities, and what they're calling high net worth individuals, people with lots of money. The concern, of course, is that these private collectors will scoop up the best items. They've already taken 24 artifacts out of the auction because these are believed to be Indigenous origin or heritage. And notably, the auction does not include the Royal Charter. That's the document that allowed the creation of the business in 1670. The Bay wants to sell this charter separately, but isn't expected to seek court approval until next week for that. The rest, there'll be an online auction November 12th and an in-person one in Toronto around November 19th.
All right. Antonia, thank you so much for joining us today here on the show.
You're welcome.
Have a good morning. That was Antonia Reed with your business news.
He was a rock climber, a white supremacist, a Jewish neo-Nazi, a spam king, a crypto billionaire. And then someone killed him.
It is truly a mystery. It is truly a case of whodunit.
Dirtbag Climber, the story of the murder and the many lives of Jesse James.
Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Opaskwayak Cree Nation, let's talk. CBC wants to get to know you a little better. I'm Felicia Adam. CBC's Communities in Focus is coming to OCN September 27th to October 1st. What do you want us to know about your community? What stories are we missing? I can't wait to meet you. Communities in Focus. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
It is 6:42 now, and you are listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. Well, Best Black Emerging Screen Talent Film Competition is making its debut this weekend at the Winnipeg Art Gallery starting at 5 p.m. The Best Film Studios proudly announces the inaugural Best. It's a groundbreaking event that will spotlight emerging filmmakers, highlight diverse storytelling, and engage the community in a vibrant celebration of cinematic artistry. I have two guests joining me now in studio. Nkem Dylan Oguchi is the Executive Director of Finance and Strategic Partnership. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And Kem Charles is the Executive Director of the Program Volunteer Services. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Nkem Dylan, I want to start off with you. Tell us a little bit more about what people will be expecting at the film festival.
Thank you very much. So tomorrow by 5 p.m., the red carpet will open, and then there will just be a lot of, the meetings with all the industry people, the networking session. Then afterwards, the film screening starts. So we have a lot of entries from across Canada, and then it was a very tedious exercise, but we finally selected 5. Mm-hmm. So the 5 movies that made the cut would be you'll be showcased, mm-hmm. and then there will be viewer voting, and then after that the winner will be selected. Yeah. Then there will be more networking. Okay. So for all the film people, this is the place to be tomorrow.
That's wonderful to hear. So I want to ask, and maybe I'll throw this question out to both of you. This is the first time that this is being held here in Winnipeg. Why is it important to have an event like this here in the city, Cam?
Yeah, so I'll take that. This is Kemi. Okay, yeah, so it's extremely important for us to provide this platform for emerging screen, filmmakers. And when we say emerging, we don't just mean new filmmakers. We mean filmmakers that, are trying to get to the prime of their career. Yeah. So this is an opportunity where we think, we can do something to contribute to the community by providing a platform that enables them to showcase their skills. Our goal is to reach filmmakers all over Canada, with special focus on Manitoba. I don't want to say I'm being subjective because I'm in Manitoba, right? Yeah. But we want to provide a platform that enables filmmakers to get to the peak of their career. So it's extremely important to us, to support the community in that way.
So this is finally happening tomorrow. How long had something like this been in the works? How long had you been thinking about holding something like this here in Winnipeg?
Yeah, so we have our partners that have been in the film industry for a couple of years. They have a lot of experience in the industry and they've always wanted to do this. So we did come together as a team a couple of months ago and we decided, how best can we showcase Black emerging talent, because we do really have a lot of talent, but in many cases what you don't know you cannot give, so we want to provide an opportunity to bring information together, make that information available, even grant opportunities so that they can showcase their skills. So yeah, it's been a couple of months, we've been planning this and it's finally happening.
Yeah, a lot of hard work. Yeah, I was going to say it takes a lot of work to put together an event like this. You had touched on the fact that you had received some video submissions from all over Canada. So how did you decide on the films that will be showcased this weekend? Because there are 5 films that will be on display, right?
Yes.
So how did you decide which films you'd be screening?
So it was a lot of work, but basically we viewed all the movies.
You must have watched a lot of films.
Over 100.
Yeah,
Wow.
over 100. And the cut was the people just submitted hoping to just make it, right? But we had criteria.
Okay.
First of all, the films cannot be more than 20 minutes long. So that was the first cut. So a lot of movies went off. And then that was the key criteria.
The quality of the film also mattered. The amount of effort you put into something. Whatever you want to turn out well, you need to do the work. You need to put in the effort. So we did get some films where, not a lot of work went into it. We had some films that, of course, when you look at quality, you look at things about clarity. We wanted films that had clarity that people could relate with. And guess what? Tomorrow, the community is going to be voting on the best films. Everyone in the Winnipeg Art Gallery tomorrow would have an opportunity to say, this is the film that should win the show. So yes.
Live voting, everything will be transparent. Everybody will see the votes count. So everybody that's there, put in your votes and... Yeah.
Because why was it important to get the audience involved in this way by putting in the vote? Some film festivals, it's done by the critics, right? And people would say experts, but why was it important to incorporate the audience this way?
They're the viewers.
Yeah.
They're the viewers. So basically, the technical part of it has been done. We've already knocked out the films based on the criteria. Now, the viewers are the people that the target. When you produce a movie, you want it viewed. So we wanted the viewers to kind of get involved, get their platform, have their say. So tomorrow, the viewers will have their say.
What do you want the audience, the crowd, to take away from this? What are you hoping to inspire people to do after they attend the film festival?
Well, first off, I think we're hoping that by the quality of films we're presenting 5 films and to the viewers to vote on. We are hoping that the message, the storytelling within those films get communicated to the viewers so that they can relate to different stories from different people and have different perspectives. That's one takeaway, and we're also hoping, to provide a platform wherein they begin to see talent and appreciate the talent, appreciate the effort that goes into telling stories. That's majorly, what we are hoping, the community takes away from this.
And also, we're hoping that they follow us on all our platforms.
And I was just going to ask you that if they want to follow you or if they want to attend tomorrow, what time is it at, where is it at, and where can they find you on social media?
So unfortunately, it's not open to everybody. We had that's event registration, and it has closed, unfortunately.
Okay.
But they can follow us on all our platforms at Best Film Studios, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and they can just follow up what happened and get all the vibes and everything from the events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also keep us in view because we have a lot of things in the works.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to hear more from you coming up. Hopefully we can do this again and talk about your upcoming events. But
hopefully, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me this morning. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with both of you.
Thank you so much.
Mkadilim
Oguchi is the Executive Director of Finance and Strategic Partnership, and Kem Charles is the Executive Director of Program Volunteer Services. The Best Emerging Screen Talent Film Competition takes place tomorrow at the Winnipeg Art Gallery starting at 5 p.m.
In the late 90s, a groundbreaking all-female music festival emerged, led by Canadian artist Sarah McLachlan.
Promoter said, you can't put two women on the same bill. People won't come. And it put a huge fire under my butt to prove them wrong.
Representation for women in rock music wasn't there.
And worse, you're being pitted against each other.
Lilith became a freight train.
Catch the documentary that chronicles a pivotal moment in music culture. Watch Lilith Fair, Building a Mystery, for free on CBC Gem.
9 minutes now to 7 o'clock. While this country has an ambitious target of achieving zero plastic waste by 2030, and a significant part of that plan is to cut our use of single-use plastic items. A growing number of companies offer compostable versions of popular single-use plastics. Think about paper straws, wooden cutlery, and compostable plastic. But are these items really breaking down the way consumers are led to believe? Charles Agro joins us live now to tell us more about the popular plastic alternatives that Marketplace has put to the test. Good morning. Welcome to the show, Charles.
Hi, good morning.
So I understand that you took a closer look at some products that were labeled compostable. What did you do?
Yeah, so we wanted to take a look at some of the items that have shown up on the Marketplace as sort of alternatives to some things that are traditionally made from plastic that we're trying to cut back on. And a lot of these items have popped up in response to a federal plastics ban that came into effect a couple years ago. So we wanted to look at 10 popular consumer products. We looked at things like paper plates, paper straws, compostable plastic coffee cups and lids, wooden cutlery. And we put those things into 3 different environments. We put some buried in the dirt to just sort of simulate what can happen if these items become litter. We also put some in a backyard composter because we know some people are doing that. And then we also put some in a crate and submerged them in Lake Ontario because we also know that some items are ending up in our waterways when they shouldn't. And then we left them there for 14 weeks, came back, dug them up, pulled them up, and analyzed how well they broke down.
Mm-hmm. And so, Charles, what did you find?
So, again, total of 30 different plastic alternatives. The only products that fully broke down were a paper straw and 2 paper plates. Remember, all of these items were labeled compostable, but when we took a closer look at the label, the details in the fine print explained that these items are only compostable in industrial composting facilities. Now, that is a type of composting that is not happening like what you or I might do in our backyard. That's composting happening at very specific, very controlled conditions. I spoke with waste researcher Cal Lacken about this. He says not only do many Canadians not have access to these facilities, but even when municipalities may have access to one of those facilities, there's no guarantee that your compostable goods are actually getting composted.
Where things get complicated is that just because it can break down in those commercial systems doesn't mean that those commercial systems accept it. Yeah. So most compostable packaging is actually not accepted in the green bin or compostable programs.
Now, something that Cal thinks could really make a difference here is rethinking how companies are allowed to use the term compostable on their products. Should it be allowed to label something compostable if it can only break down in an industrial facility? Or should that definition be changed to reflect the type of composting that most people think about when they see that word, the type of composting that means, yeah, I can compost this on my own in my own backyard?
Charlie, I understand you also tested another plastic alternative Canadians from coast to coast will be familiar with, and that's reusable bags. Tell us what you learned.
Yeah, so we wanted to take a look at reusable bags because it turns out there is actually a standard that these reusable bags need to meet in order to be considered truly reusable. And that standard is that the bag needs to be able to go 100 trips of 53 meters, carrying 10 kilograms. We bought 12 different bags from really popular chains and retailers, and we put them to that same test. After our test, only 5 of the bags actually passed our test. And we asked the Environment Minister, how can this be? Julie DeBruzen didn't respond to those findings. Her office did send a statement, though, saying that they did take a look at some composting labeling rules back in 2023, but because this federal ban on plastics is currently before the federal courts, all of those things are on hold.
So, Charles C., tell us then, what should consumers take away from your test?
So I think the important thing for consumers to remember, according to our experts, is that catchy phrase, that reduce, reuse, recycle, well, those are really the words that we should be living by. We want to, first off, reduce. So if you don't actually need to use a straw to drink your drink, just don't use a straw. If you do need to use a straw, then the best straw for you to consider is a truly reusable straw. The best bag for you to use is the bag you already have. Karen Wersig from Environmental Defense understands it can be tough. We're at the checkout. Those bags are there. You forget. It's easy to pick one up. But she says we really need to rethink what it is that we're consuming and how we are consuming it.
We've been trained by the industry that all this packaging is just a convenience item that causes no problem to anybody. We need to untrain ourselves collectively, and the government needs to help by setting up rules so that we untrain ourselves from these very damaging practices of thinking that we can grab something, use it for a short time, and then throw it away, where it will last for, centuries in nature or in a landfill.
And so for Karen, the idea that we're just sort of replacing one single-use plastic item with another single-use item, even if it is labeled compostable, for her, that's just not a long-term solution to this country's plastics problem.
Very interesting indeed. Charles C., thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're so welcome.
Charles C. Agro is the host of CBC's Marketplace. You can catch the program tonight, which is making its season launch this week at 8 p.m. on CBC TV and CBC Gem. Let's check in now with Heather Wells and a look at your morning headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, thousands of postal workers are off the job, including in Winnipeg. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers called the strike after the federal government said Canada Post can end home delivery and close some rural post offices. We're going to hear from some communities in rural and remote areas who talk about how that's going to impact their lives. And the makers of a new documentary say more needs to be done to help Manitoba students who have given up on school. It's called Absent, and a lack of effective provincial action, it says, has failed thousands of children who have given up on school. Our next local news at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather. Heather Wells there with your CBC local news headlines. Still ahead here in the next hour of the program, a Brandon teen who stabbed another classmate earlier this year might be tried as an adult. That's only if the Crown's request is approved by a judge in 2 weeks. We're asking a legal expert what happens to youth when they're tried as adults. 7 degrees right now in Winnipeg under a clear sky, on our way to a high of 21. You are listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa. Stay with us here. Coming up next on CBC Radio 1, World Report.
This was a gift to me.
Beth Robinson is 105 years old and meets every week with her much younger friend, Marilyn Simmons, who's 75.
It's one of those friendships where you feel like you've known each other forever.
We'll meet the two Kingston, Ontario women and hear what they've learned from each other over years of friendship, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Canada Post workers are back on the picket lines across the country this morning. The union, representing 55,000 postal workers, says it is appalled by Ottawa's proposed reforms of the Crown Corporation, which include an end to home deliveries. Nicolas Seguin has reaction and what you need to know about this nationwide strike.
We can fight this on the street instead of trying to convince a minister of something that he's doing so drastically wrong.
Canadian Union of Postal Workers negotiator Jim Gallant announcing the union is going on a nationwide strike. Postal workers across the country responding to the government's proposed reforms with picket lines. This comes after the federal government opened the door for Canada Post to end door-to-door mail service and move to communal mailboxes. Government Transformation Minister Joël Lightbound announced this and other cost-saving measures on Thursday.
We can't go on with Canada Post losing $10 million a day and Canadian taxpayers footing the bill.
With Canada Post on track to lose $1.5 billion this year, the federal government says moving everyone to a communal mail system would save $400 million annually. The modernization plan also includes closing some rural post offices and lengthening delivery timelines. But this doesn't sit right with some Canadians.
Mail should be mailed. You have your box in your house, done.
I think it's fine if you're in the city and if it's on the same street as you, but if you're rural and you have to drive somewhere far, that's not great.
In a statement, Canada Post management said it welcomes the federal government's proposed changes. The company now has 45 days to examine the recommendations and present a plan. Nicolas Seguin, CBC News, Halifax.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is sitting down with several fellow world leaders on his visit to London. The Prime Minister is attending the Global Progress Action Summit. Carney's meetings are being held on the sidelines of the event. The CBC's Olivia Stefanovic is traveling with the Prime Minister. Olivia, Carney's first meeting was with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. What happened there?
Well, this was Prime Minister Mark Carney's fourth in-person meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer since Carney took office last March. And even though the two are in frequent contact, they had quite a bit to catch up on. Starmer was not in New York with Carney and other world leaders earlier this week to attend the United Nations General Assembly, where Canada, France, Australia, and the UK recognized a Palestinian state. The last time Carney and Starmer met was at the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta, back in June, where they put ambitious agenda items on the table. And in their bilateral meeting this morning, Starmer gave Carney a warm welcome, said they need to follow up on those items that they laid out at the G7, such as addressing the war in Ukraine and the Middle East, figuring out how Canada and the UK can coordinate with each other and contribute to the peace process. Starmer called the bilateral relationship with Canada strong. The only issue that the two leaders agreed to disagree on is women's rugby, with Canada facing off against England in that Rugby World Cup final tomorrow.
Okay, a little sports rivalry there, but nonetheless a busy day for Carney. Who else is he meeting with?
Well, Carney is meeting with several other world leaders for the first time in person as Prime Minister, including the Prime Ministers of Iceland and Spain. Senior government officials who briefed journalists on the way to London say one of Canada's biggest foreign policy priorities right now is the transatlantic relationship with the European Union. So these face-to-face meetings are important to find new trade opportunities for Canada and also address security concerns, including drone incursions that recently shut down airports in Denmark, something officials say Carney is keen to figure out how Canada can help in the response.
CBC's Olivia Stefanovic in London. Thanks, Olivia.
You're welcome.
And as we heard from Olivia, for the second night in a row, Danish officials closed an airport near a military base over suspected drone activity. It's part of a pattern of recent unidentified drones appearing in NATO airspace. As Murray Brewster reports, concern is growing among members of the military alliance.
We will always react with calm determination.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who was defending allies not firing on the unknown drones that violated Danish airspace earlier this week.
We will do what is necessary to defend our cities, our people, our infrastructure. So it doesn't mean that we will always immediately shoot down a plane.
Who was responsible for the drones has been a mystery, perhaps until now. A Russian Navy landing ship was spotted off Denmark, hiding in waters with its location transponder switched off. Tension was further heightened yesterday with reports that Hungarian NATO fighters intercepted 5 Russian fighter jets over the Baltic Sea near Latvia. And all of this following a series of Russian drone incursions in Poland and Romania earlier this month, and the alleged violation of Lithuanian airspace by Russian fighter jets late last week. Canada's Foreign Affairs Committee met over the issue, and Conservative MP Michael Chong noted how Russian bombers flew close to Alaska this week, but stayed out in international airspace, knowing the Americans would have no hesitation in shooting them down.
That's precisely why they remained in international airspace. And the corollary of that is taking place in Eastern Europe, where Russia feels that NATO doesn't have the same deterrence posture.
Following the incident in Poland, allies stepped up air defenses in Eastern Europe, but defense experts say it hasn't stopped Russia from playing chicken with NATO. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to attack his critics during today's speech at the United Nations. The Israeli Prime Minister is due to deliver his address to the General Assembly this morning. It comes as Israel is fighting growing international isolation over its war in Gaza. It also follows a move by several countries, including Canada, to recognize a Palestinian state. Netanyahu has condemned that decision, calling it a reward for the Hamas attacks on Israel. A British court is throwing out a terror-related charge against the frontman of the Irish group Kneecap. Rapper Mo Charup had been charged for waving a Hezbollah flag during a London concert last year. The charges were dismissed on a technicality. The chief magistrate says the legal proceedings against Chara were instituted unlawfully. Chara spoke to supporters outside the court.
This entire process was never about me. It was always about Gaza, about what happens if you dare to speak up. As people from Ireland, we know oppression, colonialism, famine and genocide. We have suffered and still suffer under your empire. Your attempts to silence us have failed because we're right and you're wrong.
Kneecap recently cancelled its Canadian tour after a Liberal MP claimed on social media Canada would not allow them into the country. The group says it has received no official word from the government about the ban. Former FBI Director James Comey says he will clear his name in court. Comey was indicted late yesterday on 2 charges, both connected to a Bureau investigation into U.S. President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign and possible ties to Russia. The CBC's Willie Lowry is watching the story for us. He joins us from our Washington bureau. We now have a court date, Willie.
Well, that's right, October 9th. That's when James Comey, the former FBI director, is expected to appear in court for an arraignment. And he now faces 1 count of making a false statement and 1 count of obstruction of a congressional proceeding. Now, this all stems back to an appearance before the Senate Judiciary Committee on September 30th, 2020. During that hearing, Comey denied that he had ever authorized subordinates at the FBI to leak information to the press. The government alleges that's false. Comey, who led the FBI from 2013 to 2017, says he's innocent.
My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
If convicted, Comey faces up to 5 years in prison.
So, Willie, what is behind all of this?
Well, for years, President Trump has railed against Comey, who led the initial investigation into whether Russia interfered in the 2016 election. On social media, the president called Comey one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to. But the original prosecutor on the case decided not to pursue charges. And last week, the Trump administration replaced him. That has some concern. Here's Democratic Senator Chris Coons.
That, to me, is a very chilling process that shows the president directly involved in using the tools of the Department of Justice to go after people that he has long identified as a personal political enemy.
At his arraignment, Comey will have the opportunity to enter a pleading, and from there, a trial.
CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you're enjoying the World Report podcast, and we hope you are, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps to spread the word. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning. You are listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM in Winnipeg, everywhere on the CBC Listen app and streaming on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Coming up on this hour of the show, we hear how the town of Souris will be cheering as one of its own goes for gold in the Women's Rugby World Cup. That's after 7:30. Also, the future of mail delivery in Canada is about to change. Canada Post has given the green light by the government to get rid of some home delivery postal service. We're going to find out how some Winnipeggers feel about that coming up. But first up here, Manitoba prosecutors are seeking an adult sentence for a 16-year-old accused of stabbing another teen in Brandon. This comes after the Supreme Court of Canada tightened the rules on youth sentencing this summer. We're asking a legal expert what that process will look like. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM in Winnipeg. It is 7:11, and it is time to check in now with Heather Wells at the CBC Manitoba News Centre with a look at your headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, leaders of remote communities and First Nations are concerned about those changes coming to Canada Post. Ottawa lifting a moratorium on closing rural post offices, allowing Canada Post also to move non-urgent mail by ground instead of by air. Cheryl Matheson, Deputy Mayor of Sheridan in northern Manitoba, says people in remote areas and in First Nations rely heavily on Canada Post for deliveries, including deliveries of prescription medication. We're also going to hear about the strike by the 55,000 Canada Postal workers. A rural Manitoba senior says respiratory issues prevented her from giving a breath sample when she was pulled over for speeding last November, but MPI has upheld her license suspension. We're going to hear from her in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells there with your CBC local news headlines from the CBC Manitoba News Center. We'll say good morning to the crew here on the show. Marshall Hodgins is behind the controls today as our tech in the control room. Brad Lillies is, of course, taking care of our stream happening on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. And Abby Adiemi, well, Abby's wearing two hats today, keeping an eye on the weather and traffic. Let's start with the weather.
Weather, it's going to be sunny and mild across both most southern regions this morning, though we will see clouds roll in later, expecting a few showers to develop in the northern part of the province later today. Right now in Winnipeg, 7 degrees. It's clear outside. Those foggy conditions clearing off already. As you can see, the top of the buildings, that should burn off as we get into the morning, leaving behind some sunshine before the clouds will drift in later in the day. We'll reach a comfortable high of 22, and that's what it would look like for most southern parts of the province. The upper part of the northern part of the province rather would be more like cloudy with cool temperatures, only getting to about 12 degrees. And in traffic, yes, the rush hour traffic already building. Just a heads up for drivers on Waverly Street. All northbound lanes will be closed for construction around Bison Drive and Lake Crest Road. So construction will be happening there. You need to take that into consideration if that's your route. And elsewhere, if you see anything, just let us know. 788-3093.
$7:13 now. Manitoba prosecutors say they want a 16-year-old boy accused of stabbing another teen to be tried as an adult. The accused, whose identity is protected under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, is a student at Neelan High School in Brandon. Police say he attacked a black student with a sword while uttering threats, leaving the other teen with deep stab wounds on his hands, thigh, and chest. Brandon police said the attack was a premeditated assault that targeted people of color. The teen suspect was facing attempted murder assault with a weapon and other weapons-related charges, but those charges were upgraded this week to 3 counts of attempted murder. The Crown is now seeking an adult sentence for the accused if he pleads guilty. The maximum adult sentence for attempted murder is life in prison. Nicholas Bala is a youth justice and family law expert at Queen's University and joins me now via Zoom. Good morning, rather. Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me.
Good morning.
How common is it for prosecutors to seek an adult sentence for a teen?
Well, it occurs only in the most serious of cases, and this is certainly getting to that area. But often, even for homicides, the court imposes a youth sentence. So this is a unusual case. It's also a very disturbing case. The racist overtones to the assaults are very concerning.
What crimes would prosecutors say warrant an adult sentence? We talked about the seriousness of this situation, but what are some of the other crimes that could possibly, be looked at as, warrant an adult sentence?
The majority of cases where an adult sentence is sought and particularly imposed involve murder, intentional murder, sometimes with aggravating circumstances, someone being effectively executed as part of revenge for a drug deal.
How common is it for a teen to be sentenced, an adult, for an attempted murder charge or some of the other crimes that you had listed?
We don't have good national data about this, but it would certainly be under 40 cases a year. So in Canada, and there are over 100 homicides by young people. So it's a small portion of cases. The youth justice system allows for a sentence for murder for up to 10 years. That system is focused on rehabilitation while holding young people accountable. And our regime, and I think the Supreme Court recently reinforced this, is based on having sentences that are less severe than for adult sentences, less lengthy, and more of a focus on rehabilitation. And by and large, I think our system has functioned well. That doesn't mean there's never a case where an adult sentence should be imposed.
Nicholas, what are some of the things here that the Crown has to consider when putting forward an adult sentence request?
Well, the nature of the offense, its effect on the victim and community are certainly factors, but the critical factors that the Supreme Court has identified are the maturity of the accused, in this case, the young offender. What are the circumstances of his childhood? In a situation like this, one is going to want to know, was he deliberately planning this event? And I think there's probably evidence on his cell phone and so on about what he was saying and thinking, and his prospects for rehabilitation. But a key factor is, was he really acting in the way of an adult, and should he therefore have an adult sentence?
Nicholas, I understand that you've had a chance to read this case, and given the details that we have here, how likely is it that a judge will grant this request?
Well, it wouldn't be wise to predict what's going to happen. I have been, like others, following this case in the media, following what's been going on in Brandon. But there'll be evidence, psychiatric evidence, psychological evidence about his particular state, about his particular childhood, about his circumstances. Was he someone who was being bullied, for example, by other youth, which unfortunately sometimes in these incidents in schools, and fortunately we have few of them, but there have been cases of young people coming into schools and starting to often with a firearm, shoot other people because they've been bullied. It's affected their mental well-being. It's in no way an excuse or justification, but that might be taken into account in sentencing. So we'd have to know a lot more about this. But an adult sentence for a situation like this would be unusual, and the Crown is going to have a significant obligation and onus to satisfy.
Okay. Now, if this request is granted, I mean, what would the judicial process look like?
So the key point here is that the trial will always be under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, which means that, for example, there'll be no identifying information in the media. And if then it will, if he's found guilty or pleads guilty, and I should say in this case there seems to be a fair amount of physical and other evidence about what actually happened. But once you move to the guilt stage, then to the sentencing stage, there'll be evidence about, quite a lot of evidence about the young person, his background, his present state. And indeed, these cases usually take, a year and a half to get to that stage. How has he been doing in detention? Yeah, I think the young person right now is in youth detention, which is very appropriate. Sometimes young people in this kind of situation, their offending behavior may continue and even become worse when they're in custody. But sometimes they start to change, and that will be taken into account. One of the technicalities here is that the period in youth trial detention is not necessarily deducted from the sentence the way that it is for an adult. For an adult, one deducts that time. For a young person, not necessarily. So he could spend a year and a half before he's even sentenced, and that time would not necessarily be deducted.
Nicholas, finally, I want to ask you here, we have about 30 seconds left. What impact do you think that this case will have on Manitoba's judicial system if the suspect is tried and sentenced as an adult?
Well, as I said, this case has got a lot of attention, understandably, and particularly in Brandon, there is a lot of concern about racism in the school system. The school system is responding there. The community is responding. But is this sort of symptomatic of a wider set of problems of racism in the schools and how victims, now the Black community in Brandon feels about this? And on a legal perspective, this is, as a law professor, I'd say this is a very interesting and somewhat unique situation. We don't have a lot of precedents for it in Canada, so it'll be, interesting to see what happens.
Nicholas, thank you so much for joining me this morning and for some insight into this. Thank you once again.
You're very welcome.
Dr. Nicholas Bala is a youth justice and family law expert at Queen's University. The case will be back in courts in 2 weeks. There is no trial date set yet. It is 7:22 now, 7 degrees, mainly clear in Winnipeg. Breakout West is bringing extra creative energy to Winnipeg this week. There is no shortage of live music to experience, and later today we'll be bringing some creative energy into our studio. UK-based band Papaya Noon will join Up to Speed for some special music programming ahead of CBC's sponsored show at Pyramid Cabaret. From Papaya Noon, this is Flutter.
Feel it when I come up closer to you, baby. I'm fluttering away. Feel it when I come up closer to you, baby. I'm fluttering away. I feel the glory of glitter to my eye. Flex, tie the shaded palms around her. I'm jaded and I cannot tell the world around her. But you can't find me in your step in losing yourself. Feel it when I come closer to you, baby. Can't help it too. I'm fluttering away. Feel it when I come closer to you, baby. Can't help it too. I'm fluttering away. Before dusty laying around you. Can't count on love to race between us. I faded and to be said in all of the places. How does that stand away? A feeling when I come closer to you, and I can't help it to fluttering away. A feeling when I come closer to you, and I can't help it to fluttering away. They don't need to know it yet. Blood is always never showing. And all the nights are spent out there. Words are hardly every day. They don't need to know it yet. Blood is always never showing. And all the nights are spent out there. Words are hardly every day. And I'll be ready for you and with me. The words I'm searching for all the conversation. Why you can leave it, midnight is burning. And I'll be ready for you and with me. The words I'm searching for all the conversation. Why you can leave it, midnight is burning. And I'll be ready for you and with me. The words I'm searching
All the way from the UK, that was Papaya Noon with Flutter. They will be playing at the CBC-sponsored show at the Pyramid Cabaret tonight, but you may also want to tune into Up to Speed later today, where the band will join us in studio for a special live music interview. 7:26 now, and it is time to check in with Scott Reguera and a look at sports. Well, good morning, Scott.
Hey, Marjorie.
Hi, so let's talk about those Blue Jays, shall we? Just the tonic for the division hunting Blue Jays last night.
Yeah, a win over Boston that for the better part of the game, Marjorie, was following a pretty familiar script. Toronto's offense sputtering and the team looking like it might lose further ground in the chase for the AL East. But with things scoreless in the sixth, Dalton Varsho changed everything with a single swing of the bat, a grand slam to right that was not only enough to win the game, but just may have put Toronto back in the driver's seat for the division title. Here's Varsho on releasing his team's pressure valve.
You either can crumble and fall and not play well, or you can be us and knowing that like throughout the season we've played really good baseball and just keep trusting it. A lot of people didn't pick us to win the division, and we exceeded everybody's standards, and now it's like everybody's holding us to now we got to win the division. And it's like, well, screw it. We already have house money. Let's just keep going and keep playing the way that we've always played. And if we don't win the division, who cares? We're a really tough team to beat, and we've got the pieces to do it.
Yeah, Toronto plays its final series of the regular season starting tonight against Tampa Bay. Its bogey team. The Rays have won 7 of 10 against the Jays so far this season. So who's going to play Dalton Varsho tonight?
Well, let's go now from the diamond to the football field to the CFL, where the Bombers are preparing for a key matchup this weekend, Scott.
They are. They're taking on the East-leading Hamilton Tiger Cats. Earlier this month, Marjorie, the Ticats easily beat the Bombers. Of course, this time Winnipeg will most likely have a different starting QB. Zach Collaros has been a full participant in practice. After getting knocked out of the Banjo Bowl with a head injury, many, including former Bomber great Milt Stegall, question whether Collaros should even continue playing again, given his history of concussions. Collaros, though, says he feels good and is not making any knee-jerk decisions regarding his health.
While I appreciate the concern, not just from Milt, but other people, it's not like we make rash decisions, in this building or with my family. There's nothing about playing the game and health, obviously, that is made, just in a vacuum. If I shouldn't be out here, then I wouldn't be out here.
Head coach Mike O'Shea wasn't shedding any light, Marjorie, on whether Collaros would draw back in tomorrow, just that they would keep evaluating as the week goes on.
All right, now let's finish with rugby, where there's one more sleep before Canada goes for World Cup history.
Yeah, the Canadians can claim the biggest prize in the sport tomorrow if they can just beat England. Easier said than done. The final, Marjorie, will be played in front of the biggest crowd to ever attend a women's rugby match. 82,000 partisan fans at London's Twickenham Stadium. If that's not enough, the English are on a 32-game unbeaten run. Indeed, they are the only country Canada has lost to in the past 2 years. But don't discount those wearing the maple leaf tomorrow. After crowdfunding an extra $1 million to pay for extra training time ahead of the tournament, they have run the table, beating every one of their World Cup opponents with ease. Could England be next? We'll find out at 10 Central Time tomorrow morning.
Yes, it should be very exciting. And next hour, or coming up here after news, we're going to be talking to the former head coach of one of the members of the rugby team who's originally from Souris. So excited to hear a little bit more about that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Scott, thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
You too.
That is Scott Regier with a look at sports. It is time now for your CBC local news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 7 degrees. We are going to warm up under the sun and wind, a strong south wind, taking us to a high of 21 today, warmer through the weekend. 55,000 postal workers are off the job, including here in Winnipeg. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers called that strike late yesterday afternoon after the federal government said Canada Post is free to end home delivery and close some rural post offices. Sean Tugby is president of Cup W Local in Winnipeg.
Nobody saw this one coming. There is actually a mandate review that's supposed to start on October 1st, all the way until the end of March. And so the government decided to step in ahead of this mandate review and tell Canadians what they want instead of letting them have their own voices.
Tugby says if the post office wants to increase revenue, it has to expand services. He says the workers want to get back to the bargaining table. They've been without a contract for more than 600 days. Now, leaders of remote communities and First Nations are concerned about changes coming to Canada Post. Cheryl Matheson, Deputy Premier of Sheridan in northern Manitoba, says people in remote areas rely heavily on Canada Post for deliveries, including prescription medication.
The postal outlets that we do have in all of our communities are the only way that we get any packages or any mail, right? We don't have home delivery. We do not have FedEx or Purelator or anyone. We only have Canada Post. So this could be very detrimental to our communities.
First Nations communities are also preparing for a disruption in mail service. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kyra Wilson worries about the impact on her communities.
We see prescriptions that are being shipped through Canada Post to our First Nations communities. It's a way to connect to, anyone outside of the community. There are so many services that First Nations use through Canada Post. My hope is that there are no closures for First Nations.
Canada Post says operations are shutting down during the strike. It says mail and parcels are not being processed and some post offices will be closed. The Crown Corporation has been given 45 days to submit a cost-saving plan to the federal government. No one has said which rural locations could be impacted. A rural Manitoba woman is asking a judge to help her get her mobility back. Sharon Hosko had her license suspended after getting pulled over for speeding last November. She was 76 at the time and could not provide a breath sample because of problems she has with her lungs. MPI says she can't get her license back unless she installs an ignition interlock device on her car, but her breathing problems won't allow her to use that device.
It's been very depressing just sitting here in this room, and I feel like they think I'm a liar, because I don't drink, and I feel like, why are they like picking on me or something? That's what it feels like, and anything I say, it doesn't seem like they believe me.
Hosko has applied for a judicial review of MPI's decision, hoping to get her license back. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in London today, meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
I want to salute your leadership, Keir, in Ukraine, in the coalition of willing, in the Middle East, more broadly in this next phase of multilateralism.
It's the fourth time Carney and Starmer have met since Carney took office in the spring. And along with the defense issues Carney mentioned there, the two leaders are also discussing trade. While on this trip, Carney also has talks scheduled with the leaders of Australia, Spain, and Iceland. Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to attack his critics during today's speech at the United Nations. The Israeli Prime Minister is due to deliver his address to the General Assembly this morning. It comes as Israel faces growing international isolation over its war in Gaza. It also follows a move by several countries, including Canada, to recognize a Palestinian state. Netanyahu has condemned that decision, calling it a reward for the Hamas attack on Israel. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Well, the makers of a new documentary say more needs to be done to help Manitoba students who have given up on school. Produced by the Christian outreach organization Inner City Youth Alive, Absence makes the case Indigenous and inner-city kids are disproportionately affected by chronic absenteeism. It says a lack of effective provincial action has failed thousands of children and calls on the government for immediate reforms. Kent Duick is the executive director of Inner City Youth Alive.
It's critical that we bring this issue to the surface and that we talk about it candidly and that we make it possible for kids to have an amazing future.
Winnipeg School Division Chief Superintendent Matt Henderson says while the documentary claims absenteeism is 70% at one school, the actual rate of chronic absenteeism, he says, is closer to 6%. Absent premieres October 1st at Jubilee Place Concert Hall at the Mennonite Brethren Collegiate Institute. You can find more news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Heather Wells, I have to ask you, are you enjoying this warmer weather that we're seeing so far? It really feels like we're getting an extended summer here.
It's a gift, isn't it? I love it.
Are you growing anything?
No, I am not. But you know what? I am happy because I have two brothers who are harvesting right now, and they needed this extra time.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah.
How about your garden?
My garden is done. It actually got fried this year. I think it got a little bit too much sun. I thought I was doing a pretty good job, and then next thing I know, I look and my zucchinis have shriveled up.
Darn.
I know, it's too bad, but everybody else seems to be having some luck with this weather. So if you have some extra produce, you know where to drop it off. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells there with your CBC Local News 736. And you're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Well, speaking of the weather, Mr. Sunshine himself, Abby Adeyemi, joins me now in studio. Abby.
Good morning once again. Well, if you're going to be in the field harvesting today, it's going to be mostly sunny and it will be mild for you. So it's going to be comfortable while you do your thing on the field today. Just for the northern part, we might see cool temperatures with rain. Down south, temperatures hovering between 4 degrees and 12 degrees at this time. And we'll see temperatures in most regions down south get to 24, while up north, the highs would be between 16 around Thompson and Flimflam and Churchill would get to 12 degrees today. For traffic, it's building steady already. We're getting into that rush hour period of the day. Construction still slowing things down in few key areas. Just about that Waverly Street, all northbound lanes are now closed between Bison and Lake Crest Road for construction. Though the northbound traffic is going to be detoured to the eastbound part of Bison Drive, but during this morning rush hour, you may get like some leeway to squeeze through. And then for St. James, northbound and southbound between Ness Avenue to Silver, there's going to be like police controlled on and off road closure because some production will be happening in that part of the city today. So keep an eye out for that. It will open, but you might see the cops block off the lane at some point. Other parts of the city, Abanuja, Mikina, and Archibald, we still have maintenance going on there. You see anything in traffic, let us know. 788-3093.
Did you say production? There's a film production happening?
Yes, there's a film production and a special event happening in that part of the city today.
Maybe if anyone knows what film is being, let us know for sure. Thank you so much, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi with a look there at your traffic and weather. It is 7:38 now. Well, as you heard in Scott's Sports Report, the country will be watching as Team Canada goes for gold at the Women's Rugby World Cup final tomorrow. And that includes the town of Souris, Manitoba. Emily Titosi grew up playing rugby in Souris and is the only Manitoban on the team. Brian Yon has followed Emily's career very closely. He coaches the Souris Sabres youth rugby and is a teacher at Souris School. And that's where a watch party is taking place tomorrow morning as Team Canada goes up against England in the final. And Brian joins me now via Zoom. Good morning. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
So with the big game tomorrow, I mean, what's the vibe in Souris right now?
Well, I think it's, to say the least, it's very exciting. I think the community is pumped up for the big game tomorrow. So as is the whole country. This team is, I think, taken, the Rugby World Cup by storm. And, everybody's really excited to watch the final tomorrow.
Now, you coached Emily when she was young and you've watched her rise through the ranks. I mean, what has it been like for you to watch a student from your neck of the woods make it this far?
Yeah, it's been extremely rewarding to see a young lady from Souris, Manitoba, community of 2,000 people. Emily is, I think, the epitome of hard work and dedication. And, even when she was a student at Souris School, you could tell she was destined for something special. Her work ethic, in the classroom, outside the classroom, on the rugby pitch, no matter what it was, she always gave it 110%. And, to see the success that she's having right now is no surprise to me.
What is it about her rugby career that you find so inspiring that maybe others find so inspiring?
Well, I think the biggest thing is Emily's just a inspiration and a great role model for, for not just young women, but I think anybody who, has met Emily and come into contact with Emily. And, she's just a great person. She's a leader, when things need to get done, she gets it done. And so I think for her, as a rugby player, an international player, professional player, that's just taken her, I think, into the spotlight a bit more. But she hasn't changed. She's the same person as she was years ago in terms of how she carries herself as a consummate professional. And I think she's just truly an inspiration to a lot of people out there.
Is rugby big in Souris?
Well, it's kind of funny because when I started teaching in Souris back in 2002, I don't think anybody knew what a rugby ball was. But now, yeah, it's really big in our community. We've had a lot of success over the years, because of dedicated individuals like Emily who, helped put the game on the map. And we just had a Rugby Sevens Jamboree yesterday where our local team, our high school team, the Sabres, won all 3 games. So, she's definitely inspiring a next generation of young rugby players.
What do you think? I mean, the women making it to the World Cup final here, I mean, this is a huge deal. What do you think this means for the sport and for rugby in Canada?
Well, I think it's massive. The rugby has been a game that's, I would say in terms of its popularity has been maybe a little bit, lower on the rung on the ladder, so to speak. But the success that this team has had and, playing in a final, they're going to be playing in front of 82,000 people, which is unbelievable. I really think this World Cup has gained momentum and this Canadian squad, has really, really put rugby on the map. And I think you're seeing a lot of people right now that are going to be watching the game tomorrow that maybe don't know a whole lot about rugby, but are interested and keen to learn. And I think this team has just really inspired a nation. And we'll see, I think quite a bit of growth in the game in the next few years here.
If you had some advice for Emily, or if there's something that you could say to her right now, or maybe a message from the town of Souris, what would you say to Emily ahead of this big matchup against England?
Yeah, I would just tell her, enjoy the moment. To get to a final, let alone, win a championship or have the chance to win one. Just enjoy the moment, embrace it, and to let her know that, the entire community of Souris is behind her. And we're really excited about the big game tomorrow, and we'll be cheering hard for her.
So tell us a little bit more about the watch party. When is it happening? Where is it happening?
Yeah, so the watch party is taking place at Sur School tomorrow. Doors will open at 9:30, kickoffs at 10 o'clock. So we're going to put it up on the big screen, and we're hoping that we're going to have a really good turnout. I'm sure we will. And yeah, we're going to be cheering Canada and Emily on, and hopefully we can see a big upset over the #1 ranked English team.
Well, the Canadians are on fire, so and streaks are meant to be broken. So here's hoping Canada will take it all. Brian, thank you so much for joining us this morning here on the show.
Great, thanks for having me.
Brian Yon is a teacher at Souris School and coaches the Souris Sabres Youth Rugby. That watch party for Women's Rugby World Cup takes place at Souris School. Doors open at 9. The game starts at 10 a.m.
Western Canada's best up-and-coming hip-hop, country, rock artists, and more are coming to Winnipeg. Winnipeg welcomes Breakout West September 24th to 28th. A 4-day music conference and 3-day music festival, including the Western Canadian Music Awards, and CBC is a proud sponsor. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
15 minutes now to 8 o'clock, and right now in Brandon, it is mainly clear, 6 degrees. Churchill, mostly cloudy at 4. In Thompson at this hour, mostly cloudy, 5 degrees. In Winnipeg, mainly clear, 7 degrees on our way to a high of 21 under a sunny sky. Well, Canadians will soon see major changes in mail delivery. Minister Joel Lightbound announced that Ottawa will permit Canada Post to end door-to-door service in favor of community mailboxes. Canada Post President and CEO Doug Ettinger supports this move, stating it will help the organization adapt to today's economy. However, the union, Cup W, called a full nationwide strike shortly after the news was announced. CBC's Jim Agapito spoke to residents in Winnipeg to see what they think about the end of home delivery, starting with Beverly Sueck.
I think that it's completely wrong. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who depend on that home delivery, especially older adults who live alone and who are not physically able to go down to those mailboxes in the middle of winter. It's asking too much, and I think it's really important to them.
Michael McKay. There is nothing that registered mail does that a secure digital solution doesn't do better. There's a challenge where some of the population needs to have better digital literacy in order to properly use that system, but it's time that we make that switch.
My name is Linda Trono. So to me, this is just one in a long line of cutting out the people who need services the most. So it's just like one cut after another, and we have less and less services that we can count on.
Michael Ferris. It's been a long time coming. I was expecting it 10 years ago, and hearing it today is no news, really.
Michel Lagacé. I think it's about time. I mean, things have changed. Everybody knows there's less mail going around. I'd be happy if they cut down the number of times they deliver the mail every week, at least in residences. I mean, most of us get, 3 or 4 bills a month, and the rest is advertising. I don't see a big need for daily delivery of mail, and we've had delivery to a communal box here for years, and I think people adapted to it very quickly.
Were you there around for that change, when it changed? Yes. What was that like?
It was very simple. You walk down the street and you have your mail. It's that simple. Now, I know there may be problems with people with the mobility issues, and that has to be taken care of course. But beyond that, it's a good excuse to go out for a walk.
Now, in this neighborhood, you receive mail from a mail carrier. I'm wondering, how will this change then the way you receive mail?
We will get a whole lot less junk mail. Bottom line. And there's some government services that will need to find a way to digitally deliver our mail rather than using paper mail. That's it.
Well, I probably wouldn't go down to the box all that often because, it's difficult for me to do that. It's something that people really depend on, and I don't think it's something that's easily changed or should be changed.
No, I don't like it. I mean, I walk a lot, so I don't have a problem with going to get it, but it's it makes things more inconvenient, and for people who can't do the walking or have a totally different way of life, it would make it really hard.
How do you think Canada Post could change to be modern for the 21st century?
You know, one of the things that they do in Britain is that they have the mail carriers check on older people. And it's, you know, and because so many people live alone, I think they could be broader. I think they could do more than they're doing right now rather than less.
Well, there are a number of things I think that have to be done. One is to reduce the number of meal deliveries per week. The other one is maybe to make sure that people can access their mail, but not have to expect that we're going to have mail delivery every week. I think it's a question of attitude more than anything else. We're used to things the way they used to be. I think most people will adjust very quickly to a change in operations.
I think it needs to shift its focus to secure digital services. Here's a great example. I'm a professional engineer. In order to certify your identity, you go to a Canada Post location. A Canada Post employee looks at your ID, your passport, and goes, yes, this is that person, and then that's how that gets attached to your digital certificate when you digitally seal drawings and documents. There's an example of a good service that Canada Post now delivers, where before that it was a bit awkward.
That's a really, really tough one. They're going to have to adapt. There's all sorts of competing delivery services that are not going to go away. But the mandate of Canada Post to provide a service across Canada, I think, is still important. It still has to be done, and now it needs to be done more effectively and efficiently, but not done away with.
Those were just some Winnipeggers reacting to the news that Canada Post intends to end door-to-door delivery, moving the rest of the country to community mailboxes. Laura Tamblin-Watts is the CEO of CanAge, a national seniors advocacy organization. Morning, Laura.
Good morning.
First of all, how will this Canada Post strike impact seniors?
It will disproportionately impact older adults who are still people who tend to get the physical mail, whether or not that's cards from relatives or friends, or very often still paper-based checks, whether that be from CPP or OAS. They may also be paying their bills as well. And it's harder for older people often to get to a community mailbox.
So what are your thoughts then on the potential model changes here? Because it's more than just door-to-door delivery coming to an end. We're also talking about some rural post office being shuttered and some of that non-urgent mail being delivered by ground. What's your take from some of the changes that are being introduced here?
The first, it's important to say we want Canada Post to survive. Having some Canada Post is better than having no Canada Post, and it's certainly understandable that they have to change with the times. But at the same point, they can't leave people behind. 65% of rural communities in Canada are seniors, and that number is growing. So not having those rural post boxes in some communities will be really hard. They've outgrown some that used to be rural communities and aren't. I'm not so worried about that. The door-to-door piece is going to be important to remember as well. Now, there are disability accommodations. You can look on the website or call a number at Canada Post or go to an existing post office and request an accessibility accommodation. You have to provide some documentation, and that may give you home delivery mail if the continuing process is used once a week and packages every day. But many older people can't get to the mail sometimes, whether that's because of snow and ice or because they've got a mobility problem.
I want you to talk a little bit more about the accessibility accommodation program here, because a lot of people may not be aware of it. How does it work?
It's a pretty good program. It's just almost nobody knows about it. And that's the thing that older people are really going to have to pay attention to, because that's probably going to be the way to get the mail to your house. So it's called the Accessibility Program. If you are a person that uses technology, you can go on Canada Post's main website and you're going to look for the word accessibility. You can call them, you can chat with them, you can send an email or go to the post office. But what they're going to say is, why? And you're going to have to provide some documentation. They're not always entirely clear what documentation you need to provide to warrant getting home mail. Now, that's traditionally for people who have significant physical disabilities. Perhaps they're using wheelchairs or they're quadriplegic, so they can't get to mailboxes at a community basis. I think what's going to happen is many older people 6 months a year are going to say, look, even if I could get to a community mailbox in the summer, I can't because of ice and snow.
Mm-hmm. Do you imagine that Canada Post might bolster this program just given because of the way that they're looking at restructuring their services?
It's going to have to. I actually served on the Accessibility and Advisory Committee when the program was instituted. It was a very thoughtful and good committee. But it hasn't moved forward. And right now, older people are, again, really the most served by door-to-door delivery. They're going to have to take a senior's lens, and the federal government needs to lean into this as well. If they're sending out, the checks, and those checks aren't being delivered in a timely manner, that's going to make a real lag time for paying bills. And so we're going to need to see that companies and industries and services are going to take into account the fact that many older people may not be able to get that mail, and they may not be as comfortable using technology.
Laura, do you see any benefits to the changes that are being talked about here?
I think the current structure of Canada Post is broken and it needs to be reinvigorated. But there's other things that Canada Post can do as well that they haven't done much of that are popular in other jurisdictions. Wellness checks are something that many companies that are doing postal delivery in Australia, France, and the UK are incredibly popular. And one of the things they do is go door to door and check in on older people, how they're doing. They get a little wellness check, and that becomes part of a social safety net. Those types of programs are incredibly successful and in many ways are an additional revenue stream. Canada Post hasn't been nimble, perhaps because of their existing mandates and frameworks, but I can only hope that when they're taking away such important services, they're putting it back in targeted ways to those that need them, and that's going to be seniors.
We have about 30 seconds left here, but Laura, I finally want to ask you, how hopeful are you that the federal government and Canada Post will make the right choices here to keep in mind the needs of Canadian seniors?
I hope they do, but this federal government has not prioritized seniors at all. And I don't know if Canada Post has got that kind of leverage. So there's going to have to be a big outcry to make any kind of change.
Laura, I really do appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you so much and take care.
Thank you.
That is Laura Tamblin-Watts, the CEO of CanAge. And we want to ask you, because we've had a lot of coverage on Canada Post this morning here on Information Radio, what do you think of the changes that is being proposed to Canada Post? We heard about how door-to-door delivery for community mailboxes, shuttering of some rural post offices. Give us a call on the listener line, 204-788-3205. Hoping we can play some of your comments coming up later in the show. 7:57. Let's check in now with Heather Wells in the CBC Manitoba News Centre with your headlines. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. A rural Manitoba senior says respiratory issues prevented her from giving a breath sample when she was pulled over for speeding last November. But MPI has been upholding her license suspension. She is now appealing. We're going to hear from her. And the makers of a new documentary say more needs to be done to help Manitoba students who have given up on school. Produced by Christian outreach organization Inner City Youth Alive, Absent says a lack of effective provincial action has failed thousands of children. I'll be back with more Manitoba news and more reaction to the strike at Canada Post, prompted by those changes being recommended for the post office. That's all coming up in your next local news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells there with a look at your CBC local news headlines. Again, we want to get your take on what's happening here with Canada Post. Lots of developments taking place regarding Canada Post. Give us a call, leave a message, your thoughts on our listener line, 204-788-3205. Well, we're holding steady at 7 degrees here in Winnipeg under a mainly clear sky. Look at that. Look at that skyline right now if you're watching us on YouTube. On our way to a high of 21 degrees, mainly sunny tonight. Slight chance of a shower, a low of 8 degrees tomorrow, sunshine, and 22 degrees. Well, still ahead here on Information Radio. Halloween is coming, and if you've got a certain K-pop movie-themed costume in mind for the big day, Be sure to stay tuned for some expert advice. You're going to want to hear this. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 189.3 FM, 990 AM in Winnipeg, everywhere on the CBC Listen app and streaming on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay with us. Coming up next here on CBC Radio 1, World Report.
Scarlett Johansson is a true movie star. She is the highest grossing actor in the world, and she's just directed her first feature film. She'll be here to talk about that, about working with the late Robert Redford, and why she has never had any social media.
I don't know anybody that's on social media that's like, it seems to fulfill.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Beth Robinson is 105 years old and meets every week with her much younger friend, Marilyn Simons, who's 75. We'll meet the two Kingston, Ontario women and hear what they've learned from each other over years of friendship, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Canada Post says it won't ask the government to force striking postal workers back to their jobs. The union, representing tens of thousands of workers, quickly launched the job action yesterday after the government announced cost-cutting measures, including ending home delivery. Here's Canada Post spokesperson John Hamilton.
We are, busy working on the plan we need to present to the minister in 45 days on the changes we need to make. And we want to get on with moving forward. And we're also working on a new global offer to present to CUPW.
But CUPW says Canada Post is not negotiating seriously. Mark Levinsky is the union's local president in Toronto. He says the union is still waiting for a response to their last offer made more than 30 days ago.
At $10 million losses over 30 days, it's $300 million we've lost, and we're still waiting for a counteroffer from the corporation. When we talk about change, there needs to be change done at Canada Post. They have to realize we are partners in this.
Janice McGregor is following the story from our parliamentary bureau. Janice, the union and Canada Post, far apart for months. How can they move forward?
These two sides are so far apart, it's not clear they can even see each other. And that doesn't bode well for bargaining and the good faith consideration of new offers, a process that before workers walked out last night had been set to resume today. Negotiator Jim Gallant said yesterday the union feels the inquiry that led to these changes was fixed in favor of what Canada Post's management wants. And that, yes, there have been a few bad years, but there is money to be made without cutting services and delivery standards. So now he's negotiating in public to rally opinion around their side.
We expect Canadians will get behind us. When we've been out on our picket lines, people are saying that we're getting the bad end of the stick and that the government and Canada Post should do something.
But Canada Post has been clear that what the union's saying is gaslighting. There is no return to sound finances, maybe no future period for the Postal Service without a new approach that matches how Canadians actually use postal services in 2025. Minister Joel Lightbound made it clear yesterday that the federal treasury cannot afford billion-dollar bailouts to cover the Crown Corporation's losses anymore, as Canada moves into a period of fiscal austerity with serious economic threats ahead.
And I think that's what Canadians expect, that we show political courage.
In the midst of campaigning for re-election in Newfoundland and Labrador, provincial Liberal leader John Hogan was quick yesterday to put out a statement saying provinces and communities must be consulted before any changes proceed, particularly in rural Canada. That's a sign of how politically potent postal cuts can be.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
The Canadian economy grew slightly in July. Statistics Canada just released its latest numbers on gross domestic product, and they show a 0.2% increase over the prior month. CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has had a look at the numbers and joins us in studio. So, Peter, can we say now we've avoided a recession?
We can say we have likely avoided a recession. We could probably say we have avoided a recession for now. Remember, a recession is just two back-to-back quarters of negative growth, and we knew the economy contracted in that second quarter in April, May, and June. So if that had continued in the third, in July, August, and September, we would have met the definition. But as you say, July comes in pretty positive. 0.2% growth is nothing to sniff at. And the preliminary print for August is flat. So it would take a pretty deep contraction in September where we are now. And there's not a ton of evidence that, pretty broad-based growth through most sectors in July. A bit more weakness in August, but I think that speaks more to just how kind of tough a moment we're in. But I think there will be a bit of a heaving sigh of relief in the offices of many policymakers that we have not or appear not to have met the definition of a recession.
Okay, a bit of an exhale there, but does this allow many Canadians to feel any better?
I think that's a really important distinction here, right? For most Canadians, the difference between a 0.1% bit of growth and a 0.1% contraction is really minimal. The fact is, what we're seeing in these numbers is a portrait of an economy that's stuck in the mud, that's having a hard time getting back on its feet, that is having a difficult time because of the trade war, the tariffs, and all of the uncertainty. That's what we're seeing here, and that's why everybody you talk to tells you it feels like a recession, even if it doesn't meet the technical definition of one.
CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong in studio. Thanks, Peter.
You bet.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address the United Nations General Assembly this hour. It comes as Israel faces growing international isolation over its war in Gaza. Observers predict Netanyahu will use the speech to push back on his critics, especially those nations that have recognized a Palestinian state. Sasha Petrusik has more from Jerusalem.
Dueling demonstrations outside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Manhattan hotel. Accusations of genocide in Gaza up against supporters of Israel. The mood will be similar and just as tense inside the UN General Assembly when Netanyahu takes the podium. Virtually every leader speaking so far has condemned Israel's assault on Gaza. Some may well walk out in protest. On his way to New York, Netanyahu said he plans to respond defiantly to calls for a Palestinian state. I will speak the truth, he said, the truth of IDF soldiers of our country. The only major leader to take Israel's side has been U.S. President Donald Trump, but even he isn't backing Netanyahu unconditionally as he tries to forge a deal to end the Gaza war with his own 21-point peace plan.
We spoke with Bibi Netanyahu today, and we spoke to all the leaders in the Middle East, who are great people, and we're getting pretty close to having a deal on Gaza, and maybe even peace.
The Trump plan calls for Hamas to leave Gaza, but Israel's army too, which Netanyahu has so far refused. Netanyahu's own speech today, while likely fiery, walks a fine line between pleasing his political base at home and his most important sponsor in the White House. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump.
That's part of a video by former FBI Director James Comey. It was posted to social media after he was indicted on 2 federal charges late yesterday. Both are connected to a Bureau investigation into U.S. President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign and possible ties to Russia. Trump has been putting pressure on the Justice Department to indict Comey. On social media, Trump posted that he is welcoming this development, and Comey says he is ready for a fight too.
My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
Comey is expected to make his first appearance in court October 9th. A CBC investigation finds that Ontario paid millions of dollars for hundreds of residents to get health care in the U.S. Over the last 7 years, more than $200 million have been paid out, with the biggest cost being a specialized cancer treatment. As Valerie Ouellette reports, Canada is the only G7 country that does not offer proton radiation therapy.
Right? Like, I was like, how can this be happening, right?
Alberta's Mark Surface thought his teenage son had a concussion after a hockey game, but instead, 16-year-old Luke was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and the treatment best suited for him isn't offered in Canada. Luke will have to spend 6 weeks in a Florida hospital to get proton radiation therapy, partly paid for by taxpayers.
You know, the financial aspect is one thing, but the emotional, I think that adds a whole bunch of stress that families going through this don't have to have.
It's a Canada-wide issue. In Ontario, CBC found proton radiation therapy has been the single biggest expense under the out-of-country medical care program since 2022, costing taxpayers $2.4 million last year alone.
I'm sure we've been under-referring.
Dr. Glenn Bauman is a radiation oncologist at Victoria Hospital in London, Ontario.
We should have a proton beam therapy unit in Canada. Between 10 and 20% of all radiation treatments, there might be some benefit to thinking about protons if we had that available.
McMaster Health Economics professor Arthur Sweetman says paying for foreign healthcare can make financial sense.
There can be very expensive equipment associated with the treatment, and we simply don't have enough cases to justify spending. We just don't have the expertise, and it takes time to build up expertise.
Both Ontario and Alberta have made announcements saying they are looking into building Canada's first proton beam therapy facility. They both told us they're still in the planning phase. Valérie Ouellette, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. You are listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM in Winnipeg. Everywhere on the CBC Listen app and streaming on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. 8 degrees, sunny right now in Winnipeg. Abby Adiemi will join me in studio with the very latest on your forecast coming up ahead. Well, during this hour of the show, if the falling leaves outside have you thinking about Halloween costumes, well, stay tuned for our next guest who will be walking us through how to make a costume from K-pop demon hunters. If you haven't heard about K-pop demon hunters, it's all the rage. We're going to learn more coming up. Also, we're going to get the very latest in traffic and plenty coming up here on the show. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse. At 8:11 now with a look at your CBC local news headlines. Here now is Heather Wells. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, tens of thousands of postal workers are off the job across the country and here in Winnipeg. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers called that strike late yesterday afternoon. That is the sound of a picket line, and that's after the federal government said Canada Post is free to end home delivery and close some rural post offices. Sean Tugby at Cup W Local in Winnipeg says no one saw this coming. Leaders of remote communities and First Nations are concerned about changes coming to Canada Post, and a seniors advocate warns the proposed changes will leave older adults more vulnerable to scams. We'll hear about that coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells there with your CBC local news headlines, and we want to hear from you about Canada Post. What do you think of the changes being proposed? Of course, as we heard, workers are on strike. 204-788-3205 if you want to leave a message on our listener line, and we're hoping to play some messages coming up later on here in the show. Let's say good morning to our crew on Information Radio today. Marshall Hodgins is working in the control room there, checking our show. Brad Lillies is taking care of us on YouTube, on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. And Abby Adiemi, you've been hearing all morning here on the show, giving your weather, giving you traffic, giving you Friday feels.
The Friday vibes. And if you look up, it's sunny outside already. Most of the regions already enjoying some sunny conditions in the southern part of the province, though we're still going to see some cool temperatures and rain in the north. 8 degrees and clear in Winnipeg right now. Sunshine will take the center spot today, and then by the midday period, we'll see some clouds rolling. We warm up to 21, some partly cloudy conditions tonight and a slim chance of showers. Then we cool off to 8 degrees overnight. Brandon at 6 and clear, sunny there. Dauphin 9, sunny there. Gimli, sunny at 4. All those regions are warming up to about 24 degrees today. While up north, we're seeing about 11 in Flin Flon, and then Thompson is at 6 degrees and Churchill is at 4. hovering between, the highs will be between 12 and 16 degrees. So it's more like mild and sunshine and mid-20s for most of the region. Still at Waverly for traffic, northbound lanes are kind of closed between Bison and Lake Crest Road. That's for that construction really happening there. Though the northbound traffic is going to be detoured to the eastbound Bison Drive area. But during the rush hour traffic, you might get to see the construction guys might let you squeeze through on and off. But both directions will definitely experience some delays. Remember, at St. James, northbound, southbound, there's going to be a production there, controlled traffic by the police on and off. We just want to know what movies really happen there. But definitely some movies will be happening around that axis between Ness to Silver. You see anything in traffic? Let us know. 788-3093.
Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, if that song has been on repeat in your house, you might want to stay tuned. The K-pop Demon Hunters movie Frenzy has not stopped at all. And maybe your teenage kids or even you are hoping to channel your inner K-pop superstar for Halloween. If you are, well, you're in luck. Damien Hartcraft is part of a Manitoba group called Cosplay Shenanigans and an aspiring costume designer. And he's here with us in full costume to offer some tips on how to make your K-pop Demon Hunters costume hunt a success. Well, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start off, okay, because I want to talk about the outfit here. Okay, you're dressed in costume,
Yes.
and we're streaming on YouTube, so people on YouTube can see us.
Okay.
But for those of us, for people listening over the radio, kind of describe what you're wearing right now.
Yeah, so I'm dressed as Zoe from K-pop Demon Hunters, and I took one of her outfits literally, I think it's like right before the end credit. She has like this outfit where she's wearing like black shorts and a yellow hoodie with the derpy cat on the hoodie. And so I made this and I'm wearing that today.
Oh, wow, you made that yourself?
Yes, I had this hoodie, and then last night I have a precision cutter, and I used it to kind of cut this out and iron on vinyl, and then I stuck it on there.
That is very impressive.
Thank you.
By the way. Now, before we get into the movie, can you describe cosplay for our listeners, for those who are not familiar with it? I mean, what is it, and why did you get into it?
Yeah, so cosplay has been something that's been around since the 80s and 90s. It kind of stands for costume play. It's the art of creating costumes for fictional characters, specifically usually for events such as like Comic-Con or like anime conventions and stuff like that. I got into it because my parents started taking me to Comic-Con when I was very, very young, and I just kind of really grew into it. I love dressing up, and I love just kind of becoming these characters. It's really, really fun.
Now, you're a big fan of
Yes.
K-pop Demon Hunters. I have to admit, I don't know anything about this. My nephew has been raging about this. I think he must have watched it on Netflix, I don't know how many times. But describe the movie for us who are not familiar with it.
It's a journey of self-discovery for me, and it's kind of like that discovery. So it follows this girl group of these girls, Rumi, Zoe, who I'm dressed as, and then Mira, and they are a K-pop group, which is K-pop is a Korean pop genre. And it follows them, and they are also secretly demon hunters, and so they kind of, they hunt demons on the side, as they are also K-pop idols to kind of protect their world with their music in a way. And it's really nice because we discover that Rumi is actually a demon herself, and it's kind of her journey of self-discovery in the way that she kind of discovers that she doesn't need to hide herself and that her friends love her anyways.
Why do you think that this movie has become so popular? I mean, what is it about K-pop that's, created such a frenzy?
K-pop has been so popular for so many years. I myself am big into K-pop. It's just a lot of people are really fascinated. Like the songs are so catchy, first of all. With K-pop Demon Hunters, but just K-pop in general. Like, they're very, very, like, well-made. It's very well-made music. And then also just, like, it's so catchy, and it's so, I think, specifically for K-pop demon hunters, it feels so relevant right now. Like all of the like, like the character designs, all of like the clothes that they wear are so like in fashion right now, and just like I think like the bright colors and like the beautiful animation kind of just drew everyone in.
And when we talk about K-pop, I mean, some examples that people may know of are obviously like, BTS
Yes, yeah.
and Blackpink
Yes.
and groups like that. If we've got some listeners hoping to create some of the costumes, because as you talked about, the costumes are colorful.
Yes.
They're vibrant from K-pop demon hunters. Okay, where do they get started?
I always, for my costumes myself, I always start at the thrift store. I kind of, I go through, and especially one thing that I really, really like about K-pop demon hunters is the variety in all of their outfits. They have there's like 10 different outfits for each character. So I would go through, I would kind of go through each outfit, see which ones I would like to do and I think would be attainable for me, take screenshots, take photos and stuff, and then take those photos to the thrift store and see what you can find. Like if we take like Rumi, for example, she wears like little black shorts with a like white tank top and then her yellow jacket. If you can find like black shorts, a white tank top, and a yellow jacket, you're pretty set.
And of course, we know Halloween is around the corner. I mean, can anyone wear these kinds of costumes?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think anyone can. And I think like if you put enough like effort and work into it and really, go for the search, I think it's worth it, and I think it's really, really nice because then you can also reuse those as well. Because when we go out and we, spend like $70 at like a Halloween store on a costume, they're flimsy, they're not very well made, and you kind of don't wear it ever again. And especially with how much waste we're getting from the fashion industry right now, I think it's really important to kind of see what we can repurpose.
Absolutely. Okay, so now if you had, because you're a costume designer,
Yes.
if there was a dream costume out there that you could design or somebody you could design it for, I mean, what would you design?
Ooh, I have so many things right now. One project that's been a dream of mine for a while now that I'm actually starting to work on is I'm working on an original design for the Mad Hatter.
Okay.
Which is really, really cool. But just like anything, I love doing fun designs. I think if we're looking at K-pop demon hunters, I really, really do want to do one of Rumi's outfits, one of her like performance outfits that are like kind of a little bit more complicated and stuff like that. I really want to do like a group with my friends.
Oh, cool. So are you going to dress up for Halloween in
Not this year. No, I don't have time. I have a different competition that I'm doing in October for Comic-Con that I'm doing a completely different thing for. But yeah, hopefully within the next year or so, I really want to do a Huntrix group with my friends.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like so much fun. By the way, your design, what you've put together, absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today.
Of course.
Damien Hartcraft is a Winnipeg cosplayer from Cosplay Shenanigans. And feel free to check out our YouTube stream for images of Damien's costume.
The night lights up with Arch in the Exchange, and After Dark will be there. Winnipeg, this is Odario Williams, and I will be spinning tunes for a special recording of After Dark, just outside of Art Space for Nuit Blanche, September 27th. Art, music, dance, all night. Nuit Blanche, proudly sponsored by CBC. Just visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
All right, it is 8:22, and we've been asking you on the show today here about your thoughts on the changes coming to Canada Post, and we received this call from Cheryl.
Hi there. My name is Shirley. I lived in a neighborhood 10 years ago where they put the community mailboxes in. It was fine. I live now in a neighborhood where there isn't any. One of the things I do appreciate about the community mailboxes is packages are in the mailbox locked. I don't have a lot of porch pirates, but I have had a few times. So community mailboxes will help with that. And honestly, if it's a big package and I know it's coming, I just get it delivered to the post office anyway. So that's one thing that community mailboxes will help with. And honestly, cutting down daily mail is fine by me too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Shirley. I apologize, Shirley, for your call there. We've been asking you on the show today, what do you think of the changes to Canada Post? We still have time to play some listener lines, so if you want to give us a call, 204-788-3203. Again, 3205-788-3205. Again, 204-788-3205. I do want to talk about a couple of traffic notes here. All northbound lanes, Waverly Street between Bison Drive to Lake Crest Road will be closed for street construction today. All northbound traffic will be diverted to eastbound Bison Drive. All northbound lanes will be open for morning and afternoon rush hours. Again, all northbound lanes of Waverly Street between Bison Drive and Lake Crest Road will be closed for street construction starting today. Meanwhile, St. Mary to York, southbound middle lane 2 of Donald Street there between St. Mary Avenue to York Avenue will be closed for building construction. Closures will be in effect during peak periods. So something to keep in mind out there. Again, if you are traveling Donald between St. Mary and York, there will be some traffic affected there. Right now in Winnipeg, it is sunny, and we are currently holding steady at 8 degrees.
With a broken down train, I set this house on fire just to watch it burn. When I hit the bottom, would you receive me? Someone out there to show concern. Oh, my enemies after me are all holding me down. Watching me, he wants me in dungeons for to confine me. Lord, shine your light down over me. He hurts and hunts and holds me down. Some live to learn, some live to burn. From season to season, I'm on a highway that leads nowhere. I think I'm looking around, but I'm looking in. Oh, these signs and wonders will proceed. Something is calling in the shadows. There's a shadow. We're on a highway that leads nowhere. We think we're looking around, but we're looking in. Oh, these signs and wonders will proceed. Something is calling in the shadows. Something is calling in the shadows. Something is calling in the shadows.
That is Winnipeg's own Arnold J with his latest single that was Highway to Nowhere. Well, we've been asking you about your thoughts on Canada Post, and we just received another listener line. Have a listen.
My name is Catherine Langell. My comment regarding the postal problem is this. It is not the union workers that are the problem. It is management. Management has to come to the table and make a decent agreement. And now the government has weighed in. What are they doing to the workers? This is patently unfair to a lot of workers and their families, and it is not the union. It is management. Get them to the table and make them come to something that works for everyone in this country, especially the workers. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment there, Catherine. Again, if you want to weigh in, give us a call, 204-788-3205. Again, it's 204-788-3205. Well, coming up on Radio Noon today during the call-in portion of the show, the vintage and collectible sale is taking place tomorrow at Assiniboia Downs. So we're inviting you to actually call in. Tell us about some of the vintage items that you collect or some collectibles that you have. We have some passes to give away on the show today. So give Radio Noon a call here after at 12:30. You can also leave a message on our listener line, 204-788-3797. Want to take the time to thank the amazing crew who work on the show: Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, Kalkadan Mugaleta, Sarah Sanders, Chidi Akuma, May McKillop, Marshall Hodgins, Dylan Longhurst, Issa Kickson, Chloe Friesen, Bruce Layton, our CA reporters Shanley Vidal, Jim Agapito. And, of course, thank you to Brad Lillies, Nellie Gonzalez, and Leif Larson. Your CBC Local News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is sunny. It's a little chilly out there. Feels fresh. 8 degrees right now. We will warm up to a windy high today of 21 and then continue to warm up through the weekend. Canada Post workers say they have been steamrolled by the federal government. 55,000 workers across the country and in Winnipeg set up picket lines yesterday afternoon, just hours after Ottawa had announced Canada Post is free to end home delivery and close some rural post offices. Sean Tugby is the local president of Cup W. He says there's supposed to be a review of post office operations until next March, and he's shocked by the government's decision.
The government's directly getting involved with bargaining for a government that said that they'd be supporting workers, Canadian jobs, Canadian economy, and unionized workers. They're doing against the opposite of all those things that they promised.
Canada Post workers have been without a contract for more than 600 days. Now, leaders of remote communities and First Nations are concerned about changes coming to Canada Post. Cheryl Matheson is deputy mayor of Sheridan in northern Manitoba. She says people in remote areas rely heavily on Canada Post for deliveries, including prescription medication.
The postal outlets that we do have in all of our communities are the only way that we get any packages or any mail, right? We don't have home delivery. We do not have FedEx or Purelator or anyone. We only have Canada Post. So this could be very detrimental to our communities.
A Manitoba Grand Chief says Canada Post should not cut services to the First Nations. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kyra Wilson worries about impact and says many rely on the mail.
First Nations people, we receive through the mail, some very basic necessities, which are extremely important to the health and wellness of our people.
A government official says the move is meant to reduce the number of postal outlets in overserved areas while keeping ones in rural, remote, and Indigenous communities where they're needed. A seniors advocate warns the proposed changes to postal services will leave older adults more vulnerable to scams. Shirley Newman is at the Manitoba Association of Seniors Communities.
The world is technology-based, right? There are many people living in Manitoba and beyond that are not digital. And how are they going to get the information? And if they're getting it by phone, that becomes a real problem because of frauds and scams.
Now, as for Canada Post, it says operations are shutting down during this strike. It says mail and parcels are not being processed, and some post offices will be closed. The Crown Corporation has been given 45 days to submit a cost-saving plan to the federal government. A rural Manitoba senior says she has been robbed of her mobility because lung disease prevented her from taking a breathalyzer. Sharon Hosko was pulled over for speeding on Highway 44 last November. When a police officer demanded a breath sample, she says her diagnosed pulmonary issues would not let her hold her breath long enough to do it. So her license was suspended, and MPI told her she can't get it back until the 77-year-old installs an ignition interlock device on her car. Hosko says she tried 6 times to breathe into that device and couldn't make it work either.
I got my license taken away because I can't breathe into it, and I can't get my license back because I can't breathe into that. So it just doesn't seem fair to me.
Hosko has applied for a judicial review of MPI's decision, hoping to get her license back. A new documentary is shining a light on the number of Manitoba children who have simply given up on school. Produced by the Christian outreach organization Inner City Youth Alive, Absent makes the case Indigenous and inner-city kids are disproportionately affected by chronic absenteeism. It calls on the provincial government for immediate reforms. Inner City Youth Alive founder Kent Duick says the issue holds dire consequences for the future.
We're going to have to make peace with a world where kids are uneducated and then are going to lose opportunities at a beautiful life.
Winnipeg School Division Chief Superintendent Matt Henderson says while the documentary claims absenteeism is 70% at one school, the actual rate of chronic absenteeism, he says, is closer to 6%. Absent premieres October 1st at Jubilee Place Concert Hall at Mennonite Brethren Collegiate Institute. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you so much for the morning, Heather.
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to work with Heather. I never get to do it. It's such a treat. So it's great to be working with you again. That is Heather Wells from the CBC Manitoba News Center with your CBC local news. 8:35. Let's check in now with Abby Adiyemi with traffic and weather.
Yeah, southern Manitoba is going to be enjoying sunshine and mild temperatures. We're going to see highs in the mid-20s, while up north it's going to be cool and cloudy. Some rain coming your way later, and we'll see lows in the mid-teens. In Winnipeg, we are still hanging around 6, 7, 8 degrees, depending on where you are in the city. And for that traffic, Waverly, there's construction there. Don't forget, you should find your way around.
Take it easy out there. Enjoy the weather, too.
It's going to be beautiful into the weekend.
I know you always do, Abby. Thank you so much for the morning. Abby Adiyemi there. Thank you to our crew again, Brad Lillies, Marshall Hodgins. I'm Marjorie Dowhouse in for Marcy Marcusa today. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you again next week. We're going to be broadcasting live from OCN. That's why Marcy is not on the show today. Stay tuned here to CBC Radio 1. Coming up next here, The Current. Have a good one.